So we're going to be doing things a little bit out of order tonight, and the good news is we wrapped up the work session early so we can get a jump on some of this, but we wrapped up early. The preacher's not here yet, but I'm sure he's en route, so I don't want to cut him off. So what we're going to do is jump into items 1, 2, 3, and 4, then do the prayer and the pledge, and then we will jump, if we need to 16 and go through the list, and then come back to the public hearings after 6 p.m. Y'all tracking with all that, council?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the June 29th, 2026 regular city council meeting and the minutes of the June 29th, 2026 work session.
I'll move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All right, you got a motion and a second. Any changes, deletions, modifications? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes. Mayor, your report?
Thank you, Council. I really don't have much of a report tonight other than I want to congratulate Councilman Burrell on his son's wedding this weekend. It's beautiful. It's always nice to gain a daughter. So congratulations to you and your family on that. I also want to just thank the planning staff for their hard work on these public hearings and all the zoning changes. I know that it's been a lot for them, and in addition to their other duties. So I want to thank Hunter and his team for all that they've done. And there's very few times that I usually prepare comments, but I did prepare a few things tonight. I think these zoning changes are something that we have all, obviously they're challenging for everybody. It's been said that I'm not very engaged in these zoning changes, which I beg to differ. I am. I live it every single day. I take phone calls. I work with the planning staff, make sure they're moving things forward the way they're supposed to, obviously engage with the council. And I just wanted to say, that growth has been the number one concern that I've heard from citizens throughout most of my tenure as mayor. We've been through 2 elections where we've heard, we want to protect Fairhope. We're worried about the growth. We're worried about infrastructure. And, growth affects almost everything that we do here in every aspect of our community, our quality of life, infrastructure, schools, hospitals, traffic, public safety, and pretty much everything that we touch. These proposed changes in the zoning ordinances are not, it's not about taking away property rights. They're about finding the right balance between individual property rights, economic development, and the community's responsibility are to preserve the character and the quality of life that make Fairhope special to all of us. I think what people forget is that we live here too. We own property here. We raise our families here. And so any changes that we make impact us as well. And I think people lose sight of that. I've had people ask me, what's your biggest challenge as being mayor? And one of the things is that people forget I live here too. It's my home. It's the home to my immediate family, my extended family. And I don't take any of the decisions that we make here lightly, anything that we decide to do. So thank you for your time and attention to this. Thank you for the public, to the public who's been engaged in these changes. And again, just remember that we all have the same goal in the end, and that is to protect and preserve the Fairhope that we all love and call home. Thank you.
Amen.
All right, thank you, Mayor. All right, public participation. We have a lot of public hearings, so you'll have an opportunity to address those later. And you also have an opportunity for public participation at the end of the council meeting. So for right now, we'll go ahead and open the floor for public participation. This will be for agenda items 16 through 27 only. So the floor is open for agenda items 16 through 27. All right. Seeing none, I will go ahead and close the floor for public participation, and we'll move on to council comments. Councilman Burrell.
Yeah, I want to go back on committee reports. When it got to Andrea and she mentioned the pedestrian committee, it reminded me that although it wasn't this council, as a member of the Eastern Shore MPO, I've been asking about this Parker Road sidewalk for quite a long time, and it's now well underway, and it's probably at least 75% completed, and weather permitting, it may be completed this week. So I want to report that, and that's going to be a major corridor between US 98 and Scenic 98. And I think that the importance is we were trying to tie everything together with the Flying Creek Nature Preserve. It's a nice path to get to. It's an additional path to get to that parkland that's being so utilized. So we were pretty proud of that.
Councilman, speaking of the MPO, do you have an update at this time you'd like to give on the Mobile Bridge, or does that need to be maybe at a later time?
Well, just quickly, you've probably seen the news. Our two U.S. senators came out with an op-ed that was published last week, basically thanking the Trump administration for moving this along and cutting through some of the red tape that was getting in the way of that, and allowing us to use certain grant funding on phase one of the project, which is the bridge, and the bayway will be using the existing bayway and restripe for 3 lanes each way until such time that they can construct phase 2, which would be the new elevated bayway. That's a little bit confusing, but the one thing that gives me peace of mind, and I think this has been lost a little bit in the story, is that the program that's allowing some of these funds to be used for phase 1 demands that phase 2 be completed. So it gives us confidence, that they will do the entire project. The cost went up enormously, and that's why we needed to shuffle some funds around. The pilings had to be much, much deeper in the bay than they originally thought in the estimates. But once the studies were done, it came back with a little bit of bad news there, and it drove the cost up. I think that my personal opinion is it's just like getting bids for this city. For the longest time, we'd get 1 bid, 2 bids, and we started getting 3 or 4 or 9. We started seeing costs, stabilizing or coming down. And when you're looking at a project of such magnitude, there's 1 or 2 people in the whole country that can do it. And so, I do wonder. They may not like me saying that, but I do wonder how competitive it is, Anyway, thank you for that.
Councilman Gammon?
Good afternoon, everyone. Oops. Hello, there we go. Thank you to everybody who put on the July 4th event. That was fantastic. I was happy to be there with my family, and really great event. Everything went off without a hitch, as long as those boats stay away from the live munitions. And also very thankful that this summer we haven't had any water rationing. So it's a testament to the good infrastructure things that we've got going on. It's been years of work of that, so thank you to prior folks for helping with that. And I just wanted to toot Jack and Sherry's horn again, because they're both involved in the Eastern Shore MPO, and our senators both mentioned that specifically, how the Eastern Shore MPO was so impactful. So hoping that they can get me an autograph of the president or something as well, but if you got all that billions of dollars, but we'll see. Thank y'all.
All right. Councilman Robinson?
I just have one. I'd like to wish my wife a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Alex.
And tell her that because we have 37 public hearings, y'all can go ahead and do cake without me.
He did bake her cake, a strawberry cake.
I did.
Yeah, and he's on a diet, but he is going to eat a piece tonight.
Thank you for sharing that with everybody.
All right.
What else did he tell you?
Councilwoman Booth, any council comments from you?
Comments? I just wanted everybody to know that we are working on the parking study. Do you want to reiterate that in your comments?
Yes, so, the parking study, I've gotten a summary of that. I think with everything we had going on with the public hearings tonight, we decided to push that off until next council meeting, which will be 2 weeks from tonight. So we will have that to review with everyone. It's just a study, recommendations, and things to be discussed. So, did you have any other comments? All right. Beyond that, I guess I'd just kind of reiterate what the mayor said earlier. Appreciate all the city staff and planning director, the planning commission, the council members, the mayor, everybody that's been working on these ordinances. Appreciate the engineers, architects, and developers that have weighed in and been heavily involved in this process. We just appreciate all the community input, and again, we've split this into 9 different ordinances with the idea that hopefully the ones that we can get approved and push forward without further discussion and without further debate, hopefully we can get some approved and move forward. And if there's any that need continue work, we have it split into 9 so that we're not holding up progress on the entire zoning ordinance. So that's the logic behind that. And I appreciate everybody who's been working on this for the entirety. It's been a long process, and just thank you for your patience. So, let's see. Pastor Davey? No? Pastor Davey's not here. I don't see. All right. Why don't we go ahead and jump on down to item number 16, and we'll just come back to the top of the meeting whenever he gets here. But item 16 is an ordinance rescinding resolutions number 4950-23 and 4986-24 and establishing the service territory for the new connections to the City of Fairhope sanitary sewer wastewater system with addition.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Thank you, sir. So the ordinance has been introduced. Noel, would you like to give some background on this for everyone? Just what's changed since the last time we discussed it?
Yes, we had added the southeast corner of the territory. It's bounded by 13, 104, 32, and 34, I believe. Or 24,
Bottom
sorry,
right
24.
corner that's been kind of got hatch marks on it.
Yep.
Council,
Yep, a small portion of that was in there originally, but
I think
we went ahead and filled in the,
that
yes.
one little kind of lone piece out to the side that was floating unattached almost.
I don't think it'll add a lot of pressure on the, there's a lot of large landowners in that section there.
Yep.
Questions or comments, council? Well, hearing none, we'll let this lay over to the next council meeting. No rush to move this forward, so we'll let it lay over till then. Thank you, sir.
Sounds
very
good.
much.
Thank you.
All right, item number 17 is a resolution that Mayor Sherry Sullivan is hereby authorized to execute a contract with Krebs Engineering for professional engineering services for supplemental air installation for the wastewater treatment plant with a not-to-exceed amount of $75,000.
So moved.
All right, we've got a motion
I'll second it.
and a second. Any discussion or any questions for Darrell on this?
I didn't ask it in the work session, but I know that we've talked about this a lot, but I guess is this being budgeted under all those improvements for the wastewater treatment plant?
Question.
I can answer that question. I think Daryl, jump in if you need to. This is part of the improvements that we've talked about, so it is one of the components of it, and it is budgeted like that. And this, again, is only the engineering fees. The project itself is just north of $800,000, at least that's the estimate.
Okay. I think that I remembered them giving me a tour of all of these new things once again and going through all of this, but I just want to make sure that it wasn't anything that we hadn't heard of. I didn't think it was.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, resolution passes. Item number 19 is a resolution that the City of Fairhope approves the award for request for quotes for materials for the Dairy Road water main to Empire Pipe and Supply for a not-to-exceed project cost of $42,593.58. This public works project will be less than $100,000 and therefore does not need to be formally bid out.
So
It is-
moved.
Got a motion
Second.
and a second? And this is going to be for materials only, but any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Council President,
Yes, ma'am.
you skipped number 18.
I sure did.
Yes, I was wondering about
Okay.
that.
It's called a pocket veto.
Well, it's all this moving around the agenda and all this. I apologize, y'all. We'll go back to that one. Item number 18 is a resolution that the city council approves the selection by Mayor Sherry Sullivan for on-call professional engineering services for the water wastewater department and an annual contract to Krebs Engineering, and allows Mayor Sullivan to negotiate the not-to-exceed fee to be approved by council.
So moved.
Got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
Are they currently our on-call provider? Or have we had one in the past?
So we currently have a contract with Dewberry. And so what we want to do is we kind of want to split that in half, because we use Krebs a lot just because they are so familiar with our system, but the way the contract is written, we just can't cancel it. So I've been working with Erin, and she said this is kind of a solution to what we can do to use Krebs, just because they are so familiar with our system.
My only concern, and you know what I'm gonna say, is that just calling them out of convenience and having them on call all the time. And we have an engineer that I'd like to see do as much as they can before we do on-call type.
100%, and that is taken into consideration
Sure.
with this on-call contractor. We just don't just call them just because it's
You know
convenient.
me, I can't live with myself if I don't say that, though.
I understand. So, but thank you for asking.
Yeah, the other thing too is our other on-call engineer, actually the engineer that we worked most often with took another job. And
Yes.
so he's no longer there, so it's somebody who doesn't, he knew our system. So again,
Okay.
that was the other reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell.
So we've got a motion and a second.
Yes, you do.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Item number 20 is a resolution that the city of Fairhope approves the procurement of Caterpillar High Flow SG36 stump grinder that is on the Sourcewell contract with Thompson Cat, and therefore does not need to be let out for bid. The total amount not to exceed $8,619 plus shipping and handling. Additionally, the city of Fairhope approves the trade-in of the Fecon mini skid loader stump auger for $4,000. The total payment after trade-in will not exceed $4,619 plus shipping and handling, and authorizes the treasurer to transfer $8,619 from small equipment to capital purchases in the fiscal year 2026 landscape budget.
So moved.
Approved?
All right,
Second.
we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Heck of a deal.
Hope they don't find a typo.
Great deal.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
20,000
Hope that's
shipping and
not a
handling,
typo.
right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna save us money, because we don't have to outsource.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Item 21 is a resolution that the city of Fairhope approves the annual procurement of tulip bulbs, paper whites, daffodils, poinsettias, and other fall and winter flowers for the fiscal year 2027 for the landscape department to Billy Harris and Associates with an estimated cost of $16,023 plus shipping and additional tariffs, and to Rugrok flower bulbs with an estimated cost of $36,381.38 plus shipping and additional tariffs. The cost will be included in the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget. This procurement is allowed pursuant to the resolution number 1650-10 adopted May 24, 2010 that declares flowers as unique like items, and the extension of this categorization to include any cultivated varieties differentiated by a specific name.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion?
Second.
Is that a
Give it to
second?
Jack. I'll give it to Jack.
All right,
You can have-
motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Item 22 is a resolution that the city of Fairhope authorizes or approves the procurement of a 3-year maintenance agreement that is on the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative Contract with TK Elevator, and therefore does not have to be let out for bid. The total annual amount is $8,100. This is actually a $3,000 reduction, and for the 4 elevators that we have in town.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Item number 23 is a resolution that the city council reject all bids to procure services for fire extinguisher inspection services, annual contract, and authorize a rebid of the annual contract under the Code of Alabama.
Move to reject all bids.
Got a motion to reject all bids and a second. Any further discussion?
We were all distracted by Pastor Davey, and we were so excited that y'all missed it.
All right, all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Pastor Davey, we got started early, so we held up on the prayer for you. I think if we can go ahead and get you to do that, and then council, we may just finish 24 through and then jump back to the public hearings.
Well,
All right,
I'm
so-
honored that y'all would do that.
Well,
man.
we
All
figured
right.
you were en route and did not want to do that to you. So Pastor Pat Davey with Eastern Shore Presbyterian.
Thank y'all very much. Let's pray together. Father, I thank you for our mayor. Thank you for this council. Thank you for the work that they do behind the scenes that so many of us don't realize. We just pray that you would guide and direct all that's done this evening, Father. You put us in our positions of authority, and I pray that all that's done, the deliberations, the decisions made, would lead to the flourishing of Fairhope. This is a beautiful place to live. We thank you that we get to live here, and I pray that you would help us to value the work that this council does in serving this community. Any deliberations that take place, I pray that they'd be done with great respect, and that you'd be honored in all that's done. And we thank you for this evening in Christ's name. Amen. Thank y'all very much. Thank you very much. You bet. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Davey. Appreciate you. All right, council, we'll resume. Item number 24 is a resolution that the city of Fairhope approves the procurement of an annual contract for managed print services that is on the Equalis Group Master Agreement with Xerox Business Solutions, and therefore does not have to be let out for bid. The total monthly amount not to exceed $1,422.83 or $17,073.96 per year, and I believe Jeff said 38% savings.
And a
So,
motion to
Move
approve.
to approve the procurement.
Everybody's wanting to get on that one. So motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to say, it looks like you had to do a couple extra steps to get this, because so we got to get an opinion, so I appreciate you taking the extra steps. Makes a difference, shows that we care.
Right. All in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, motion passes. Item number 25 is an application for specialty retailer of consumable hemp products by Jack V. Greer Jr. and Autry Greer and Sons, Inc., doing business as Cash Saver number 18, Greer's Fairhope Market, 75 Section Street, Fairhope, Alabama. And Chief said everything's in line with this. So would anyone like to make a motion to approve the application?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Got a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Council, I mean, you know I'm not going to vote for this, so you're not winning me over, but I would hope that we would treat the downtown area where we have lots of families gather just a little bit differently, and in the parades and everything else, just like I wouldn't think we would approve this near a school where we know there's going to be a lot of kids and everything else. So that's just my personal feeling on it.
I think this is like, and I really appreciate that,
Yeah.
but I think they are like a canned soda. I'm not drinking them, but I think it's more like it's a drink. It's not something they're out smoking and something like that.
And now we do have strict, strict guidelines in place. If they violate, then the whole business is business license is at risk. And this is certainly not a purchase it, walk outside, crack open the container, because we've got other rules about open container that would apply to that. So, so we've got a motion and a second.
Yes, we do.
Does it, Chief?
Does the open container law apply to hemp?
No.
No, it does not, because it's not alcohol, which makes some sense.
Oh.
They can just crack it up.
Okay, interesting
Well,
comment. Well, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the approval of the application, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
nay.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilman Gammon, for your words. Next item is item 26, is an application for a restaurant liquor license by Jeremiah T.O. Matthews for Volanta LLC, doing business as Volanta at 800 North Section Street, Fairhope, Alabama. And this is, Chief said everything checks out with this.
So moved?
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Item number 27 is an application for a restaurant liquor license by Pete Carnley, GC and K LLC, doing business as the Decoy Bar and Grill, 300 Fairhope Avenue.
Move to approve.
Got a motion
Second.
and 2 seconds. Any further discussion?
I just believe the chief said everything was in order.
Sir. All right, all in favor of the application, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, application passes. We will continue to keep public participation till the very end, so now we're going
We go to 29 now?
back to, well, we got a lot knocked out, so that was good. We're going back to the beginning, so the first item, or the next item we're addressing is a public hearing. Item number 5, it's an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance for general cleanup.
Thank you.
Do we need to introduce the ordinance?
Yeah, I'll introduce the ordinance.
All right, thank
Yes.
you for introducing it. Hunter,
Kind of the way this is structured in the slides, I might have to skip back and
around.
forth. We have 9 ordinances, so I want to kind of give one time a brief summary of how we got to 9 ordinances, and then we won't discuss that. Assuming that the council doesn't intend to walk anything on tonight, there's a public hearing for each one. We'll pause and let those conversations. We have links to the full ordinances if we need to pull those up, but for just the convenience of slides, we have what's changed since the last conversations. So I believe these ordinances were first discussed in a work session in August 2025. Multiple ordinances were advertised, re-advertised, and I think at the last conversation, it was an attempt to separate out the ordinances, and we've done our best to do that. Unfortunately, it's not quite so easy sometimes. You have definitions, which there's a section, the second ordinance, that may affect multiple sections. So it's kind of hard to extract that completely, but if there's any questions on those, we'll be happy to answer those. Quick summary, really, since the changes, I believe when we had, in June, we had lots of meetings from various stakeholders, and we had 2 work sessions where we were here talking about every amendment and change that were being made. So there's not too many changes from the previous iterations. I do want to emphasize that while there's 9 ordinances here, there are no new concepts. There are no, we're not sliding anything new in. It's the same concepts that we've discussed with minor changes to that. This table kind of highlights that if we need to refer back to it. So these are the proposed ordinances. 9 different ones. They will get ordinance numbers if they are adopted. That will be a little more clear than ordinance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but at least we'll assign those if they are adopted. So at this time, we're talking about the first ordinance, and that is general cleanup. So as we extracted the other 8 topics, there was a lot of other things, just general grammar, clearing up minor inconsistencies, but that do make this easier to read. That's what this one entails. It's not one we can pull a quick summary up, but as, for example, we do have a link to the ordinances. I do want to show this one time. The ordinances advertised, this is what we're required to do. And this was an attachment. Peyton Rogers went through and kind of did a red line. These red lines are not part of the ordinance. They were just submitted as reference because sometimes the whereases can kind of confuse what actual changes are, especially as we extracted these into 9 ordinances. So this ordinance, and I'll skim through a few pages, things like the Director of Planning and Building is what it used to be titled. We've clarified that to reflect what is currently taking place, or currently the way the departments are structured. So minor questions, if there's any comments, we'll be happy to discuss those. We do recommend approval of this cleanup, and I will welcome any.
I do have one, Council President,
Sure,
and it
absolutely.
may be included in public comment. I've got my notes from, we've had several members of the community that have provided feedback, and I just kind of understand this. Hunter, I don't know if you saw that. It says that the deletion of the CBD mixed-use dimensional standards should not be included in this ordinance. So, trying to read this, the deletion of it should not be included. So you're saying it shouldn't be deleted. Okay.
As it's
If-
contingent upon another ordinance, yeah.
So it's dependent, because it's dependent upon what happens with so-called ordinance number 3.
And that's what Hunter, I was going to have a similar question, because that's what Hunter's driving at. You try your best to parcel this into 9 separate things, but it's hard sometimes.
Yeah,
to
if you can get an
exactly
answer to that,
separate,
so clarification, it might make this one real easy.
Yeah.
And
Or
sorry,
easier
there was some
from this-
comments sent, I think, I received that yesterday. If I'm interpreting that right, and it's kind of there are sections in the CBD and the medical overlay district that refer to mixed use. We have another ordinance on this list that is intended to bring all those requirements together in one section of the ordinance. That section deals with mixed use in the CBD and outside the CBD. So in this cleanup, for example, the medical overlay district, I don't think there was a comment on those. It was just the CBD section. So we did in the cleanup say anything that is wrapped up in another
So
section.
you're familiar with that. You advocate to leave that language in.
I advocate to approve the mixed use ordinance. So, but
I understand.
That is, we have to adopt this cleanup first, because there's a lot of just grammar changes, things like this, and then each ordinance after this will effectively build on this ordinance. It is true, if you do not approve the mixed use and approve this, there may be,
You'd have to edit maybe one again.
yes, there is, it would,
Mr. McDowell, should we try it with ordinance 3 first then? Or
no,
this is
no, I do
Chris?
not recommend that.
No?
This is the building block for,
The rest
if
of
you
them.
want to hold this off, and discuss that one, but before adopting anything, this one needs to be adopted first.
So I guess my next question, let's say this gets adopted and something else doesn't that is now tied to this. What's the format in the interim? So just making up a scenario, this gets approved, something else that's referenced by this doesn't get approved tonight, but maybe gets approved in a month. What happens in the month in between where you're, and I know we're not voting on
I
anything
was gonna say,
tonight, so
let's clarify.
I don't
We're not
want to.
approving tonight, right?
I would
Right, we're not
ask,
voting
since
on
we are
anything.
not voting on anything tonight, let's have the conversations. If you have questions about what those are specifically, I can better answer those.
Okay. But go through them one item at a time in this order.
And we can
Okay.
kind of highlight those. I think that is dealing mainly with the commercial requirement of the ground floor. We struck that out. It currently reads 50%. We're proposing 75 in the mixed-use ordinance. If you don't approve either one, or if you approve this one, it strikes out everything. If there's not a requirement there, technically, there would be no required commercial on the ground floor for mixed
So
use.
we can basically have the questions and comments, and if we hear anything that we feel like we need to tweak something in here, you'll be better prepared to know how to address the other items based on what that
I
conversation is.
can give you the consequences of if you don't, and
Okay.
maybe some timelines of what it would take
That,
to
that
get
would
back
be
in front
perfect, I
of you.
think. Councilman Burrell, does that kind of
Yes, sir.
cover what you're looking for?
And these two gentlemen here can tell you if it's substantial enough where it does
Has to
require
be
re-advertising.
re-advertised.
I do desire for the council and the staff and the mayor and the attorney to all discuss it kind of in here.
Yeah.
Because to go back around full circle and talk to one
No, no,
person
no.
at a time. or what
That's
have you.
why
I would
everybody needs to
appreciate
be
that.
prepared to be in here for a minute tonight.
Yeah, I'm actually relieved that we're all here together tonight for the
All right.
first time.
Okay.
All right, so any questions on item one or before we open the floor for public hearing? All right, floor is open then for item number one, which is just the general cleanup. Yes, sir. And Lisa, if he gives his name and address the first time, the next time he comes up, if he needs any comments, can we just consider that done? Good.
Mac Walcott, One's House School Street. I want to do some general overview comments that may streamline some of the comments through the 9 ordinances
Yes, sir.
and some of the specific questions you may have. My partner Ryan Baker will be glad to run up here 9 times to talk. But I appreciate what the mayor said tonight about our common interest in making Fairhope a great place and keeping it a great place. And we spent, gosh, the last 7.5 months embedded in technical talk. You know, it's been technical jargon that's highly detailed, and I thought a lot about a common sense approach to a lot of this and how that affects our public dialogue. And I think that'll help us all kind of get to some of this. You know, I keep thinking, and I'll get to my suggestion to you in a minute. Wouldn't it make common sense to decide if a pool is an impervious element before you pass the ordinance? We're kind of heading down a road of passing a speed limit law without defining what speeding is. You know, we're doing stuff without really knowing what we've got. Wouldn't it make common sense to not discourage mixed use downtown, which I hope there's no dispute that this ordinance radically discourages the residential component of mixed use. In some cases, a 40 to 60% shrinkage. Wouldn't it make sense to not discourage mixed use downtown while our comp plan encourages it? I mean, that doesn't make common sense. Wouldn't it make common sense to not discourage the various housing solutions while our comp plan says we want to encourage affordability, diversity, and choice? Something's out of whack with that, and this ordinance doesn't seem to want to square that. Wouldn't it make common sense to not drastically change one part of the CBD regs without knowing the other parts? The CBD is the one piece of our town that's by design encouraged for high density and special exceptions and everything that makes a city vibrant. It's an organism. So what we're doing is, without knowing the parking study, without having a height input, I mean, the height study may come back and say it wants 1.5 stories or this. That'll have a huge impact on what we do in the CBD, but we don't know that yet. And then we really have this weird discussion about density. Are we encouraging or discouraging it? And I've been thinking it's kind of like y'all are working on my ingrown toenail while blood's coming out of my ear. Let's get the whole organism understood without crushing one piece of it. And a lot of y'all have said we're not a small town anymore, and I can understand that. And I hope this switch from a small town thinking to large town thinking can be a transparent, thoughtful, respectful, particularly to the property owners that are affected. I don't think this ordinance passes that test. It's so it's wacky in so many ways. And as we go from, many times people, as we go from small town to large town, we give up on our common sense and switch to expert sense. And that's what I'm wondering if that's what we're about to do. And are we ready for that in Fairhope? I told some of y'all, I want to ask y'all tonight if
We
our
have to wrap
comp
it
plan
up.
has a economist in it that wants to opine about what businesses should be in Fairhope. Are y'all ready to tell me, for instance, that my family's property shouldn't do this type of use on it, apartments or residential, but you should do the type of use that the economist said? Are we ready for that? Is that Fairhope? So I hope we can slow down on all this. Our specific task for you guys
We're
is
gonna have to wrap it up and maybe get you back up. for
Okay, I
another
will, but
section. I
I'm-
just want to keep everybody.
Okay, the specific ask is to table or not do anything related to the CBD tonight till y'all get the whole picture. Y'all don't have the whole picture and give yourself time to do that. And I believe that you owe that to the property owners, and we need to really look at the complete picture of the cost, the benefits, and the unintended consequences before you do that. So that's what we hope we can do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate that. Floor is still open on just general cleanup. Yes, sir.
Ryan Baker, 460 Dogwood. I'll comment about the, Hunter said it perfectly. If you take out the 50% rule that's currently written in there and it passes, which I'm for the cleanup, everything else, I looked at every red line. I'm a zoning geek, I guess, to do all that with work, but like they are. But looked at everything else make completely sense. I just don't want. And if y'all pass it, that's great. And if whatever happens, and y'all figure out how to work through it. But I don't want us to leave it where potentially we pass it, it goes away to zero, and there's an unintended consequence that y'all weren't thinking about. So that was just the reason why I brought that up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, anybody else on general cleanup? All right, council, any additional comments on general cleanup? Got a feeling we're gonna have some of these comments are gonna start overlapping as we get further into this, and that's okay. All right. Next item is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend. You're ready, you're up for the next one, or are you still on
Yeah.
general cleanup?
I'm done with general cleanup.
Okay.
You want to close that public hearing?
Yes, we'll go ahead and close that public hearing and move on to the next item, which is a public hearing for ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance definitions. Council, would somebody like to introduce this
I'll
ordinance?
introduce it.
Thank you, Councilman Burrell.
Okay.
Hunter, go ahead.
So the second definition, or the second ordinance is dealing with definitions. There was really no changes throughout. I know there were some questions, I think. Again, I received it yesterday, but, we really didn't have too much conversation over these definitions over the, 10 months we've been discussing this. So we have those, if we want to pull those up. But really don't have anything to present because there wasn't any changes from February to October and during our work session. But I'll go ahead and click the link so we have it up if there are any conversations. There's the ordinance with the new definitions and revised definitions. Be happy to answer any questions related to those.
Council, before we open the public hearing, are there any questions on the definition section?
I think I'll have some questions once
Well,
we get some public comment
yeah.
on this to lead into some.
All right, well, at this time, we'll go ahead and open the floor for public hearing, for public comments, and this is related to definitions. Sir, how are you doing this evening?
Trey Cordy, 53 South School Street. I was just reading over it tonight, and I just noticed that one of the new ordinances coming up identifies as multifamily apartments. I went through to see what the definition of an apartment was, and I didn't see anything. Because a lot of people, multifamily, I think, from what I can gather in all y'all's ordinances, it's more multifamily, and everybody believes that's rentals, but that's not true. Multifamily can be multi-stories stacked on top of each other, and you sell them as condominiums. So I just believe from a technical standpoint, multifamily apartments, which is labeled as one of them, and there's not a definition of apartment, that needs to be addressed differently. Excuse me. Does that make sense? Because I can do let's just say something small. Two apartments, forget the word apartment, but 2 dwellings on the first floor and 2 dwellings on top. That's not a townhome. You'd have to sell those as condominiums. And they don't have to be rentals. You don't have to rent them out. But if I wanted to do that and then condominium out and sell 4 condos, I don't think there's any definitions or anything that identifies or addresses that situation in y'all's regs. So that's something I think y'all need to look into from a technical reason.
Hunter, do you want to address that question? I mean, you could be an apartment and sell it kind of like a condo anyway, right?
Without, get IT, kind of back up. We do have definitions in there. I'll pull those up after the public. We have single family, 2-family, and then townhomes, and then multifamily / apartments covers anything greater than the 3 units that are in there. Be happy to, we can go back now and do that, or those are all under the dwelling use categories.
I guess we might as well go back now and cover it while we're on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing that dwelling use F. Multifamily / apartment.
Okay, let's put the glasses back on and click on the ordinance. So really some of the changes here were just capitalizing dwelling units, but the dwelling use category provides single-family dwelling, which is attached with 1 dwelling unit designed for and occupied by 1 family. Similarly, we don't call them duplexes, it's 2-family. Townhomes are units that are separated by vertical walls. And then multifamily apartments, a building or buildings with 3 or more dwelling units designed for or occupied by 3 or more families with separate cooking and housekeeping facilities for each, where either the units share a common entrance from an exterior of a building or any single dwelling unit has a common wall or floor with more than 2 other dwelling units. It doesn't talk about ownership, rentals, anything like that. It's the
Condos
structure.
fall into that category,
That's
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know.
Currently, I mean, where it gets blended sometimes, that's also how you get the unique short-term rentals that are not a bed and breakfast or a hotel, which we've talked about before, so don't want to get those too confused. But
Thank you
that
for doing
definition, I don't believe we changed anything substantial with that other than defining or capitalizing dwelling. I'm going to slide down to the red line. Yes.
Right there.
One more down.
Oh, there was, scroll, that's dwelling unit. There's
Oh,
a whole
that's what
dwelling
you're looking
use
for.
section.
Oh, dwelling use.
That is, yep, this mouse is a little sensitive. So you can see that's the way our ordinance reads right now. We didn't change too many tangible things within that. You see the red lines. We're capitalizing things that had definitions, and didn't really change anything within the tangible within those. We did remove and reserve the townhome complex because there was some confusion when people are trying to design a townhome but doing it with apartments. So multifamily, anything that was intended to be designed similar to a townhome, shared vertical walls but don't have the shared common areas and things that a townhome requires, they would be reviewed as a multifamily / apartment. So that's why the slash, because some are not rented, some are multifamily ownership. Any other
Any other questions on that? Comment? All right.
That particular part, yeah.
Floor is open for definitions, public hearing. Yes, sir.
Ryan Baker again. So I made these, I sent an email to y'all. I know y'all have read them all,
Yes,
but
we read it.
I think it's kind of important for me to at least bring it up and give it a chance for Tunner and the staff to respond to any of these things in the future for y'all. But the upper story dwelling, that the way it's defined in here says 90% commercial, which conflicts with the new ordinance, we would say 75%. Again, it's one of these, I don't know what happens when you pass one and there's a conflict, so just bringing that up. And I also don't know how upper story dwelling would work with duplexes that are stacked instead of side by side. Again, that's something for y'all to consider. The gross floor area one is just defined different than other things. I know it's done on purpose. Understand that it's defined different than the building code defines gross area, and how other municipalities define it. I think it's related to the FIR part when they on the CBD or mixed use, in general. And then the dwelling unit one that Hunter was talking about before, the change that it says now that everything has to be connected internally, where you can't go outside to. So there's been plenty of pod style houses where there'll be a bedroom separate from like they'll have the living area as one area, and then you walk outside and you go down the hall, enclosed covered area, whatever, to a bedroom or whatever. That if you have to go outside and go back in, I guess that makes it 2 dwelling units. I'm not really sure how that works under the new definition, but that was kind of confusing to me because there's plenty of examples of that in Fairhope that have that kind of relationship. It's a kind of a common design style for houses. I shouldn't say common. It is a design style for houses. Not all of them do it that way, but it is one. So just wanted to bring those things up. Thank you very much.
Ryan, one thing I do see on their upper story dwelling, I believe that's been corrected, that the 75% first floor occupied by commercial. It doesn't conflict anymore. It's not 90 and then 75.
Okay. I didn't see y'all I didn't see it
You
get
can go
changed.
to that. Can you pull that back up?
Yeah, it was actually in the red lines, which was not the ordinance, but what was advertised in the ordinance is 75.
Okay.
I mean, mine's
That's where it
clearly
gets
shows
confusing, and I
75%
understand what you
here.
explained that at the beginning, and I appreciate that. It's hard to,
So that
especially as a
at least that
non-lawyer
part of it was
layman,
corrected.
to catch all these things.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Floor is open. All right. Council, any questions for Hunter, or Hunter, any additional comments on that
I
category?
have one more question
Yes,
about
sir.
the fact that breezeways would create additional dwelling units as opposed to them all being internal. Is that to prevent mother-in-law suites that could be considered another residence or
No,
another rental property? What is the purpose behind?
No, right now, there's actually a conflict with some of the pod style, because what our regulations say right now is a principal dwelling, and then everything else is an accessory dwelling. And if you look at the requirements of that, some of those accessory dwellings are limited by our accessory table, 25%, I think, in most. So a mother-in-law suite, I don't think we're really defining anything majorly different. It's putting in one clear area, and then there's exceptions. So mother-in-law suite has an exception. So it does allow that if it's attached to the building. Now, if we want to in the future look at pod style, that's some of the debates we've even had during at staff. I think you were on the council or planning commission one time. We were kind of debating some of these things. That could be but that's kind of a small use for pod style. Most of the ones we see are true accessory, principal house, accessory buildings, pool house, garage, other things like that. But I think what we want to explore in the future is when someone is building within their principal setbacks, do we care if there's multiple structures? As long as there's not a single, all intended for a single family.
As long as you're not covering more ground or going over any setbacks that you're not supposed to, does that really matter? As long as it's occupied by a single family, and your mother-in-law, maybe it's a different family, but truly, your mother-in-law could live down the hall, or you could have a breezeway and put your mother-in-law in a bedroom, you know, separate, as long as it doesn't cover more space than it should, so.
And right now, that
But keep an eye on that. I mean,
is
that's,
essentially the language says one thing, and I don't disagree. There's been interpretations that at the staff level, different ways. We've had, I think, 7 different planning directors, and some of that inconsistency is what we're trying to clear up. So what those definitions are, and
Now, clearly, if somebody says we have a single-family residence, and they have a breezeway that leads to a bedroom, and they're renting it as part of an Airbnb, then we have laws to stop that too, though.
well, and why I say this, I know we got into long debate because even a mother-in-law suite is when it's connected to the principal structure. What is connected? Is attaching 1 2x4 and making them touch? Is a breezeway connected? What's the devil's in the details sometimes?
Yeah.
And we've debated that a good bit in some of those
So
public
Hunter,
meetings.
you're talking about a pod. I need to ask questions that may.
Sure.
What's the difference? You're saying change the wording to a pod. Does that mean it doesn't have to be connected?
I think the email that y'all received Friday references pod. That's not my language. So I assume that means, and there's different architectural styles. Some cultures have the kitchen in one building, the bedroom in another, maybe the living room in another, and you walk outside to get to and from the other. I think that's the concept. Is that fair?
So while we're on the subject, why do we have to have connection?
We can change things to whatever the council desires.
Okay.
That's
just always been a question. I mean, this goes
today.
back a long time ago. Why do we have to have our homes connected? If we just want to do a mother-in-law suite, guest house.
Well, and that starts pulling at strings to a lot of questions. Accessory dwelling units is a section of the ordinance that is very limited what that is, meaning you can't have additional living quarters. So why? That's previous councils decided it. So I'll there's a lot of opinions on that.
What does, well, I'm really getting in the weeds here, but I'm really trying to address all these in detail. When you say internal access, I'm thinking about the bedroom that I grew up in as a teenager. It was great. I didn't have to go through the front door. I could go through the back porch, have my own door.
No.
So was that internal access?
That's the details that we are certainly debate in our department at times with the way the ordinance is currently written.
Boy, there's a lot of homes with a lot of doors that can come in, the back door, the side door, the door at the end of the breezeway.
Huh.
It get a little messy.
I do not.
I don't think your job's easy at all.
No.
I'm not looking for a simple solution.
This has been the same
trying to avoid the gray
definition
areas.
for 11 months.
That's what developers and builders, it's the gray area that costs them so much. Not only time and money and stress, but, and for staff as well.
Sure. You're 100% right. And, certainly I wish we had a chance to talk about this over the 10 months we've been there, because we could have tweaked some of this.
We should keep in mind that if we can't come to, we may get to one of these ordinances that we say, let's just table this one, for another 2 weeks.
We're taking it real serious.
Sure.
This is our town. These are our people, our citizens. We want to listen to them.
100%. The definitions is a tough one to extract.
Yeah.
From
Especially
some
for
of the
me.
other ordinances. So, again, I didn't get a chance to really look at all the questions that came in.
We may have an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
I don't know, advantage
So
or
I'm
disadvantage.
kind of winging, but I'll definitely take a deeper dive on that before
We could
the
look at it
next
before
meeting.
final adoption, right?
Yeah, and be able to answer some of those questions. I did see the gross floor area definition. That's pretty common. It's probably more common to have a different definition in the zoning ordinance than the building code. Building code is international. It deals with things that kind of a it's the same wherever you go. The zoning ordinance is written for most of the time local, so you have definitions that are not included.
But I
You're
just think it's the
creating.
use of that, when you have that term, then
Yeah.
where are you using it that matters, right?
Right. And that's why we spell it out. Some of the ordinances around locally do, I think it's Gulf Shores, their gross floor, they have a different gross floor area depending on the zoning district. So they have one for tourists, one for, this, so there's multiple definitions. But I'll certainly try to elaborate on any questions if anything comes up. Between now and next meeting, I'll be happy to discuss those.
Well, I appreciate you trying to work so hard to keep the charm and the character of Fairhope.
Any additional questions?
I think Mac needs to,
Honor, yes, sir, come on
want to
up.
come on up?
Floor's still open.
So the question about the connected houses, the wings on a house being connected, the question I have, and this is back to the comment, what made this issue rise to the level of needing attention? What problem were we trying to solve? I'm curious why that is a problem that merited such serious discussion, because is it something that's a problem? That's what I don't understand. Is it I would ask whoever wrote that ordinance, what problem were you trying to solve? That's my first question. And then the second question on the how you calculate the area of the downtown residential. What's interesting in this is embedded as including decks, the width of the rail around your deck, and your temporary structures. Now think about that for a minute. So a small deck with a bunch of bedrooms and a large deck with no bedrooms get treated as the same thing. I'm not sure what that logic is, but the net result of it is when you get into using that area into the new concept of floor area ratio is a highly leveraging effect to discourage the ability to do downtown residences. That's where I read it. I said, wow, this is the most extreme way to define something. What's up? Why not make it the center of the rail just for silliness instead of a big wide thing? Why does a deck and a temporary structure get treated other than we're possibly fishing for the most restrictive definition, which means this pattern of trying to discourage downtown living? So I hope those are questions y'all could deal with. So.
Hunter, you want to respond?
Well, I think for at least the first one, it sounds like the point was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Hunter, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but because over 7 directors there were different opinions, this was a way of clarifying what the opinion seems to have been.
Yeah. Consistency.
Consistent, yeah.
Consistency.
Maybe disagree with that definition, but it's at least creating more black and white where there is gray.
Yeah, I mean, and I think on the most recent project we had, I think Ryan and I debated multiple times how to calculate what the gross floor area or what the area of the rooftop terrace on top of the boarding house was. That's a unique definition to Fairhope zoning ordinance. So we did spend a lot of time, and it's really not too many unique things. Porch right now is defined the same way. We just kind of put it in its own definition, but we had to define what those temporary structures were to learn how to measure it. How that affects. It's a definition of how to do it, clear instructions. What you do with that, whether FAR needs to increase or anything like we're not dying on that hill. There's just clear instructions on what to do. Okay.
Questions, council? Definitions? All right. We'll go ahead and close the floor on that public hearing, and we will move on to item number 7, which is a public hearing. Item 7? Yeah. No, we have not covered 7.
We're on 7.
I didn't read, I had myself.
Item 7 is a public hearing. It's an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance referencing mixed-use buildings.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Again, kind of initially we were wanting to provide some clear and consistent standards, because mixed use is in medical overlay district, it's in various requirements. There's even been times when we've had planning commission go, well, I thought we did this, and it was proposed but not adopted. So what that clear guidance was the goal. We revised, I believe, we put a formula in. I don't think the formula is evil. What the result of that formula is, limiting density. It is very much, puts a cap on what that is. And, we've, I think, moved that density number 3 times, landed in the CBD at 12 units an acre, which is higher than any other residential district we have. And on top of that, you get commercial. We did reduce the required commercial percentage. And then we did, I think Ron provided us a study, and we looked at, actually, I think 62 lots within the CBD, looked at every one of those, what's there. Not sure, I'd say the majority of those are likely for redevelopment, but we did acknowledge that there are some lots that would be adversely affected by this and not be able to do one residential unit. So there was one residential unit added to that. The way that language reads, there's the highlighted portion. I think we've discussed this multiple times, so I don't really have too much to say about this. That was the commercial
Go
as
back to that
revised.
Prior, I was just reading that one section.
So the blanks, if adopted, just would go in. I think there was a question, and it might come up. I don't want to steal any thunder, but I do remember one about why we would set that date. There are no lot size minimums in the CBD, so I think we discussed if you do have subdivisions, it's B2, and then you come in and do, 400 lot subdivisions, and you can have multiple units on 1 unit each on those lots. So establishing any lot that's smaller than that today, we need to make accommodations for. Any lot created in the future, if this was adopted, could meet that standard. Okay.
One thing I do have, mixed use, I think, is one of the things that's charming to Fairhope is having that ability where you've got commercial downstairs, you've got residential above. I know we're hearing from some of the community that this is discouraging of mixed use. I want to, trying to walk a fine line and address density, but also be respectful of mixed use. I think setting it to at least a minimum of 1, did not want any of the downtown lots to get eliminated from being able to have property. I thought that was important. The one other one to me on that is, especially when you're dealing with something that's fairly small, considering like you're talking about the difference between 2.01, if you do the calculation, you come up with 2.01 units, or if you come up with 2.99 units, like very different. So is there a rounding up, like standard rounding, like 2.5 equals 3, or anything above 2 is automatically rounded up to 3, or are you looking to round everything down? What is sort of the logic on that calculation?
So this calculation uses a simple units per acre type calculation. It doesn't round up. Now, if we wanted to do that, we could, but the ultimate answer is how many units per acre do you want? That was what we're trying to tie the scale to a lot size, so we can create a range. But at the end of the day, what are we can solve for X. I just need to know what the goal is. I think the mechanism here works. It's if it's 36, 31, that's 1 unit. If it's 44, 97, that's 1 unit. Until you get to 7260, you don't get 2 units. That's the simple math in the way it's presented. So if you wanted to give more units an acre, you could just reduce that number. Or we can, if you wanted the same end result but be more clear, you can put a range for 3630 to 72, I'm doing math on the fly, 7259. It's the same, yeah, what's the desired result? We can write it multiple ways. I don't think that's a gray area. That's a pretty common methodology for coming up with density. That we can show examples of multiple places. So if we want to increase the density, we could just tweak that number. But I'll happily do it another way if council thinks it would be more clear.
This one, I think, this was probably the most involved of all the changes in this particular item. I'm still studying my notes, and the question was raised, and if you look at this way the ordinance is read now is that you cannot have a dwelling unit less than 600 square feet, but you're limited by the lot size to how many you can have, and that's a multiple of 3,630 square feet. So you have exactly, or if you have from 0 to 7,259 square feet, you can only have one. You got to go to 7,260 to have two. So is it necessary to have a minimum of 600 square foot for a residential size? Thought that was a really valid question, and that's probably a very simple change, is that you're limited by the number of units that you can have based on the lot size.
Not a critical change where that came from. Looking at some other, we asked questions of other jurisdictions. A lot of times you have a de facto, hey, it's a closet on a set of plans that turns into later an enforcement issue because, it's got plumbing connected in that closet for a mop seat, but it's converted later. So there was a size, of a minimum standard, kind of the same as, and I think that one actually came from Gulf Shores. But it's not, I don't think that's critical.
Sometimes we get tied up with enforcement and we don't want to, it's like, well, sometimes law's hard to enforce. You just got to do it. It's like rental property, sometimes you got to find those people that are violating the short-term rental laws, and when you do, you penalize them. But I could see an instance where somebody legitimately maybe wanted a little bit more commercial on a second floor or a third floor of a building, and they wanted to make an apartment a little smaller. Maybe they wanted to make it 500 square feet, 400 square feet, because they really want it to be a commercial building. I don't know. I can just see some examples of that.
Don't disagree with you. I think that's
It's a very, very small, it's a nuance, but it's something that maybe that is over, maybe we don't need that regulation in there.
So, but you, Gulf Shores thought this was valuable?
That's what the value is. Is it critical to the ordinance? No. Would love the opportunity to take that out before, but, it's not new. So I guess the path there is, do we pass, come back and amend it to remove it, hold this up and let these gentlemen figure out if we have to re-advertise?
Is that so material in the whole scheme of that one ordinance? That's like a pretty minute detail.
It's, so use restrictions.
You're not getting more restrictive, you're getting less restrictive there.
No upper story dwelling. Yeah.
You might want to have a design that just has a real small apartment on the third floor or something, because of your.
Yeah, ask, one of the things Mac just asked is, what problem are we fixing, or what does it add to this particular ordinance to have that additional limitation of 600 square feet in there? I mean, if we're managing per acre and we've got 3630 for that, what additional benefit does the 600 square foot add to the ordinance? I'm not saying it
only what
doesn't.
we do. Yeah.
I'm just.
It again, not critical to the overall concept of that. Attic spaces being that wasn't intended to be lived in, and people are there.
Yeah.
Yes, it is some of the things that why it was inserted into that. And to answer one of the questions, a duplex that is up one floor and next floor would not be an upper story dwelling.
Correct.
Upper story dwelling is actually by its very nature has to be above commercial.
Be mixed use, right?
So the two-family building would be a 1 unit above, 1 unit down, not an upper story dwelling.
Yeah, I mean, so my understanding of this is that, I think just what you just said is that upper story dwellings are only above commercial, correct? And so when you're talking about that development, you can't have that dwelling even created. Well, you can have one, I guess, if you're under the square footage lot size, but above that, you can have one, depending on your lot size. So I think we run into situations where I just think there's that we don't get any benefit. You can't have I don't know that anybody's going to build just a single residential 400 feet above a commercial. I don't know how that would make sense. And so what I see is the problem this would correct is if you're talking about what was an attic space or whatever space that can potentially be converted some point, but if that lot size is not enough to warrant having an additional dwelling on that property, then it wouldn't matter whether it was 400, 800, 2,000, they couldn't occupy that as an additional dwelling. Does that make sense?
Right. And this is where, when it comes up and you don't have time, some of the conversations we had earlier about that minimum is ensuring it's a legitimate mixed-use building. So if one is allowed and they come in and say, well, we've got a 300 square foot residential unit, we want all the perks of a mixed-use building, but everything else is an office building or there's a minimum to keep.
That's a concern if you take that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Sorry, it is on the fly. I'm trying to remember back.
So the concern is not necessarily that we're going to get somebody's going to sneak in an additional residence. The concern is that somebody's going to build it under the guise of its mixed use, but it be just primarily commercial.
Not have to
But I don't know
adhere to
why
some
they're
of
gonna do
those.
that, because they're gonna take 25% up of their first floor. They're gonna penalize themselves, because they're only gonna get 75% commercial. If you put in a residence and you have a first floor commercial, you're gonna eliminate.
But he's saying if it were not
25%
really a
space on the first
residence.
floor.
if
Yeah,
it
that's what
were
they say.
more-
They don't really want to be a residence. They want to be
Yeah.
almost
Perks
all
of being
commercial,
mixed.
and they
All
put
office
a
building.
bedroom up there that's
Yeah.
identified as residential to get all the benefits of a mixed use.
Approve me?
Really having to do everything to.
I get that. That makes
Again,
sense
I
to me.
think, I completely understand that. I think my question is, I think what my perceived intention of doing some of these modifications in the CBD especially is to encourage people to continue to build commercial downtown and not let residential completely wipe out the commercial component. And so this appears to be worried that we're gonna have too much commercial and not enough residential.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely understand it, and I'd have to.
And I think certain uses, and I think even Ryan Mack have called attention to, kind of one of the first zoning amendments we proposed was, requiring parking for office spaces. So you didn't wind up with just office downtown, because that's another negative aspect of things. So,
Substantively, though, if you take it out, you need to re-advertise it. So I think you either need to scrap it entirely, pass it, and come back and advertise the revision if you end up changing it, but that's just something y'all need to be considering.
And I'm not saying it doesn't have value, I'm just trying to understand kind of all of the different thought processes for things that may seem contrary on the surface.
And Mr. Williams, if we, for instance, did not pass number 3 now, would that throw a monkey wrench in a lot of the other ordinances opposed to tabling it? In other words, if you pass now, it's not such a big thing that you couldn't change it later, but if it's not such a big thing to wait, I don't ever want the fear of having to re-advertise, oh, it's more work,
no.
I don't want that excuse.
Yeah. No, I think it's, your aversion to risk. How risk averse are you? You know, you could hold this one off past the cleanup, and just if we don't get any applications till we get back in front of you, we don't have to worry about that 50% ground floor. You know, so when we could
I see.
potentially.
Yeah, there might be other consequences too.
I think it would make more sense to me to pass it and then apply for the amendment.
And that's where I think
That's the whole reason why we've been passing
we,
all
after
these
these conversations, we'll try
moratoriums.
to spell out all right, with dependencies a little better for you and send those,
Yeah, and then
so.
And the one thing, I know I just brought it up a second ago, but I keep coming back to the rounding up or not, like, that's where my mind was when we first said every lot should get at least one unit, was, my mindset was, that's sort of like a function of rounding everything
Yeah, we rounded up.
But I don't know that you should round everything up, because one that.
It's 36, 31, and 72.
Right, the question is, do you round up to 1, but do you round up above 1?
Well, and so then my question was, okay, there's a difference between 3631 and 7259, right? Like, why would you not take the normal standard mathematical rounding and say, if you're at that halfway point, you go up? Because it's a big difference, and I could see that coming into play downtown with lots and saying, okay, whether you get to do 1 or 2 units might make the viability of a project completely different.
Yeah.
But if you're 3631 versus 7259, I mean, that's a pretty substantial difference in lot size, so I can see that.
And that
logic.
threshold almost has to be hard in the zoning if we're gonna implement that metric.
Yeah.
So where those hard lines are,
And that's why where my
it's a
mind
tough
keeps going is, okay, well, what if you're 30 times 445 number. Seems like you'd round up, like normal rounding would apply to me, but
do you
is
keep
it an
doing
all or
that?
not?
If you wind up with an acre site, do you keep, once it hits a certain threshold, once it hits 12 units, do you keep rounding that up?
If they would qualify on paper for 12 and a half units, 12.9 units, like rounding it up to 13
Well, you can
wouldn't
still
be.
put a limit, you can put a ceiling on the.
But rounding it
A
up
maximum
to,
of-
but rounding it up to 1 unit, I mean, I'm not talking about you doubled it, you just, if you qualify for 12.9, and it's more punitive the smaller you get. 1.9, having to round down to 1 instead of rounding up to 2, just, that's more punitive. But if you were 12.9 and we rounded to 13, that's not that dramatic.
Have we worked out a definition for what half a residence is?
Get on that. I got 2 weeks.
Half a dwelling?
But that's just one that I keep coming to, because that's where my mind was when we first looked at well, everybody ought to be able to have a residential unit on them.
Yeah, I thought that was our sort of olive branch out, saying we're not going to penalize so that nobody can, because now we're letting somebody who qualifies for .1, rounding up all the way to 1.
Right, and in my mind, that was sort of
yeah,
like a
point, but-
fractional unit
Yeah.
should equal a unit, but then I thought, yeah, but if somebody qualifies for 1.01, do I necessarily want to round it to 2? Maybe not.
Well, but I mean, that somebody, I mean, under,
0.9.
the way it is right, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, somebody, right, the way it's written, if you have 1,200 square foot lot, you get 1. If you have 72, 59, you get 1. I mean, that's,
Right, big difference.
I mean, and I understand exactly, and please, Hunter, make no mistake, none of this is being critical. I
understand.
I'm just processing. I know
Right.
we've talked about it for months, you know, but you hear it differently and it triggers different ways
Yeah.
to look at it. I mean, I know what you're looking for, a uniform solution to move forward with, which is, I think, what we all need to be looking for. But I mean, in my mind, that example of a 1,200 square foot lot and a 7259 lot both get 1, that seems unfair to me in practice. Now, what the magic number is it 0.5 and higher, you get an
round
additional
up.
1?
On a traditional round, like standard rounding, to me makes sense, because at 1.01, 3631, and
But 1.4999 is still getting 1.
Yeah, that's what I'm sitting here thinking is, okay, the owner that comes in and says, hey, guys, good grief, let me get some relief here, I'm at 1.4.
Yeah,
Where
where's that hard line?
Yeah.
There's a
Right,
hard line
I
somewhere,
mean, you
right?
got it, yeah, I mean, and so you almost have to pick the number.
I'm at 1.45.
And that is what it is,
Yeah.
and then you're, you know, I mean,
Yeah. Which is why I would, recommend if you tell me where you want that .5 to reside, and I can work back to the number like this, so it is at least clear.
Is that a regular
Or
practice?
a range, we can come in with a range and say between here and here, you get this, here and here,
yeah,
you
but
get
I
this.
think, I mean, I kind of like the way it's written as far as I mean, 1 for every 3630.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm okay with that number. I think if you start changing that number, it is, you get a little more dicey, but it's
Yeah.
the ratio that we're, I'm not sure I know exactly how to.
I see what you're saying though. You're just swapping it though, right? Because now you're going from 0 to, whatever, I'm just gonna say 5,200 is 1, but I got 52. I got 51.99. Why can't I get 2? Right? And
I
all
just
you're
wanna-
doing is just moving the goalposts. It's the same game.
I just want to say real quick, online, people that are watching online, I've just been notified that they can hear us, I think they can see us, but they can't necessarily see the screen, so they may not be able to see what all we're looking at and working on, but we're working on fixing it, so.
Yeah, my
If you
husband
can't see
texted
it
me that
online.
He could not see the meeting, so.
And we haven't
We're
changed
working on it.
anything in quite some time, so I think it's being.
Yeah.
if you think your
Maybe-
screen is frozen, it is not.
It is not frozen. We are not moving the slides.
Right.
It's just a good
Okay.
debate on.
So, I mean, is that kind of address something that requires re-advertising? Because it doesn't say one way or another, or is that just a policy? It doesn't look like it says round up, round down, or anything like that.
I believe it's some language, it's basically the whole numbers of
Yeah.
30.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
you think about this, and one we did sway, it is kind of clear. R1, how many units you get, is 15,000
Yeah.
square foot lots, that's math. How many times does that go into an acre? 2 point something. If you've only got 1 acre, well, you don't get to round up and have 3 because they don't meet 15,000 square foot. So you get 2. If you get enough acreage to hit that next threshold, that's the methodology, so that it is clear and not debatable. Again, what the end result is, we're certainly.
And I guess the reason I keep going to that round up thought process is just because I do want mixed use downtown.
Yeah.
I do think that's
On a walking community.
yeah, I mean, I want people living downtown and working downtown. I think that's a good thing for Fairhope. I think that's one of the things that makes Fairhope unique, so. If there's an area to be less punitive, if that's even what you would call it, to me, it's be more generous, it would be in that area because I would like to continue.
And that, it's a hard target to hit. I think we've kind of talked about this multiple times. Okay, you kind of increase the density a little bit, and then another project comes along that I might consider doing this. You're kind of chasing your tail. I don't know if we revisit the way we're thinking about this between lot sizes between here and here, get one number. If you're concerned, I haven't done the math. Like, okay, what does that 1 acre look like? How many, if you just reduce this, you are increasing density, and you may be hitting that threshold that were projects that were not, necessarily the most favorable.
And I don't mean to tie this up so long, because I know we haven't even opened the public hearing on this.
I kind of want to poll the council real quick. What are you guys thinking, guys and ladies? Are you thinking round up on the half?
I'm kind of round up on the half personally. I mean, that's
Round
Like
up on the
we're
half.
giving.
We compromised on the 3630, but it's not a huge compromise to round up on the half. It's still more restrictive than it was.
But do we pass it as is and amend it later?
so.
Otherwise, we're letting the moratorium expire before
Always
we're,
kick the can on that again. Would rather not.
I think we should,
Lord of mercy.
I know what the community's gonna say is, yeah, you're gonna pass it and never change it, but I think that we could consider passing it. Well, we got till next meeting, but
Right.
I don't, there's some other restrictions in there that I think that should be in place.
I think it's worth passing and then amending. We've already shown that we'll go back and edit things. We've done that
Yeah.
before. The B3, B4, the
Well,
underneath here.
any additional thoughts just in general on the mixed use? And, because I'm, didn't mean to derail us. There's a lot
You
of,
might want to even say greater than 0.5, so that if it's 0.5 or less, but if it's like 0.501, you can round up. The way you write it, you say greater than 0.5. or greater than
Well, I imagine what you
0.5.
would do is you actually do ranges of the square footage, right? You would say from 0 to 52, and then from 5201 up to this number, and then I'd imagine that's essentially what you'll be doing, but I don't know.
That would certainly be clear. Where do you end it?
Yeah.
Do you just keep going? I mean, we can go to our biggest lot size in the
Yeah.
CBD, and
Might be worth looking at where other municipalities handle it if they do this rounding business.
Just make sure whatever you do is clear.
I think, the ranges like that would relatively,
Well, that's what it is now, right?
I think you have to-
It's just a more restrictive range.
Well, and if we're
Floor's
moving
not
the,
open.
if we're making revisions on that part, are y'all inclined to remove the 600-foot upper dwelling, or?
I'd be inclined to remove it.
No, I'm
Personally.
not. I don't know with the rest of council.
I'd want to, about the problems it would create, I think, I'd want to talk to you a little bit more about it, I think.
Hunter, do we have more to cover on mixed use before we open
that was the two
Public floor.
changes that we've discussed, so.
the two
Please.
main things? All right, let's go ahead and open the floor for public hearing. Yes, sir.
I'm Brian Britt, 455 Magnolia Avenue. Thank you, Hunter, for the unenviable task that you've been charged with. You're never going to make everybody happy, but thank you for trying. We've done some things downtown, my partner and I, Gardner Maloof, I'm sure y'all are familiar with, and we kind of do take pride in trying to do good stuff. We care about the town. We want to create assets, things that are beneficial downtown. We don't want to create anything that's a negative ever. But I can give you a specific example relevant to what y'all have been debating. We own a lot on Magnolia Avenue, which is between Church Street and Section. It's a big lot by downtown standards, 83 by 160. It's actually a double lot, 13,280 square feet. So by the proposed math, we would be allowed, and what we've conceptually been thinking about doing is a cool restaurant space with 4, we would like to do 6, but 4 residential units above, with plenty of on-site parking. I think we probably would be able to fit more than just the one per unit's required. Don't hold me to that, but I think we could. But at 3.6, if we're limited to 3 on that site, first of all, 3 is weird architecturally, and the project doesn't really work otherwise with 3 units in a commercial space. So if we didn't do that project, what could we do? Well, under the current rules or the proposed rules, we could create a 39,000 square foot commercial building, an office building, for example, and fill it full of cubicles, and 200 people a day could show up there with not a single on-site parking space. So I fail to see how that is preferable from a density standpoint. And Councilman Robinson, you mentioned a moment ago something, I don't want to misquote you, but you want to limit the residential uses downtown for the sake of density. I don't see what problem we're trying to solve. I think that's worse from a density standpoint when more people coming into town every day. When we built our little cottages on Bancroft, the staff was, when we first presented the concept, it was, that's all you want to do? So yep, that's all we want to do. And they were elated with it. Now, we couldn't do that project at all for a variety of reasons under this proposal. So again, it's just sort of, we're playing whack-a-mole, and from a property owner who's trying to invest in the town and the goalposts keep getting moved. In 2018, you got an extra 5 feet of height in your building if you were willing to do mixed use. That's how much the city was trying to incentivize it. Now we're disincentivizing it 8 years later, and I just don't quite understand what the issue is or what the problem is that we're trying to solve. I think the changes we made in 2018, 2019 are good, fair, workable solutions. The on-site parking requirement coupled with the height sort of self-regulates the density, I believe. So again, I don't quite understand why we feel the need to make these changes at all. But I'm with you on the rounding up, that would help. So
Ryan, just to be clear, my comment was not directed at that being related to density, more so about not everything in downtown being commercial. And
sure, but if you like mixed use, which has always been the position of the city to try to incentivize mixed use, I'm not quite sure why we're trying to make it harder and harder to do, particularly when we have some self-regulating mechanisms like the height restriction and on-site parking. You can only do so much on any given site. So I think it's great just the way it is, but at a minimum, I think that some more conversations would be beneficial.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank
Yes, sir,
you.
Matt.
I think the conversation about the number of square feet per unit is interesting because it implies there's a real simple way to do this. But in reality, if you take a lot, I mean, we're acting like I can just take my lot size, divide by 3640, and know how many units I got to get. Well, you have to run the gauntlet of the off-street parking, the percentage commercial, the new FAR, and the unknown height. Those are really profound stomps on this type of use. And I want to say again, why do that when we don't know the whole vision for downtown? It really, Brian's being nice when he says he only wants to do 4 units. As it sits now, he could do more than that. But he's using his judgment there. But why are we, I still don't understand why what we're heading on mixed use downtown so badly for, because if people were watching this and say, well, this is real simple, just divide your property area by this, that's not the way it works. You would get much less than that by the time you developed a design for these different lots. So it's really a much more perverse effect than is being conveyed to you tonight. So I want you to think about that when you decide. And I would say, once again, why are you focusing on this use and stomping it when you don't even really know about parking or the point that Brian raised about the conflict of high density offices and squishing this other use. So I hope y'all can actually put it all on hold is what I would hope you could do. Thank you.
Hey, Trey Cordy again. So these comments are going to go, I don't want to get up here 7 different times. Y'all don't want to listen to me 7 times. I'm going to go through these real quick. But so listening to this past conversation y'all were having, just kind of, there's a couple solutions that can simplify all this and make it easier. So, mixed-use buildings, y'all have a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet, 80-foot wide minimum. Multifamily apartments, you have minimum lot size of an acre, 200-foot wide minimum. Why? Why? What's the purpose of that? Townhomes, you'd have to have a 20,000 square foot minimum lot, 80-foot wide minimum. What is the purpose of those minimums? In y'all's new ordinances, y'all have set densities. I'm a huge proponent of densities. I'm not here to argue what that density should be. Multifamily is 4.5. That's good. It's going to pretty much eliminate all these big walk-up apartment, the rental apartment complexes. That's fine. I'm not here to argue that. But y'all are not, and then plus y'all keep talking about the downtown area. All these rules, I know there's an overlay, but all these rules also apply to outside the city, and the city's way, way, way bigger than downtown Fairhope. And y'all tonight, I think, are missing that. Y'all really need to get into densities. Forget lot sizes. So why, if I wanted to do a mixed-use building, why do I have to have it 80-foot wide? Just think about that. It's not an answer tonight, but think about it. Why are all these minimums? So the density is good, but get rid of that, because the experts here, like Brian, he's a lawyer, but he's a very active and really great developer. And we got Matt Walcott. I have me, when there's several other people who aren't here. We're the experts. We understand the consequences to these rules. And I know this is going to come out wrong, but nobody up there has any experience in engineering, architecture, development, construction, and that kind of stuff like we do. Maybe one or two of y'all do, but not many. The staff doesn't. Y'all aren't reaching out to us here locally. We have a lot of experience here that lives here and does development here, and y'all, all we get is this computer screen with a 3-minute countdown. Please come to us and we can help y'all resolve this very easily. We do it every day.
I'm going to disagree with you. We have been listening to you guys.
We have with a 3-minute countdown. I mean, I'm talking about a real sit down.
We have. I know
You're the
Mac,
only one that met with me.
Well, Mac will tell you. We have all met with Mac. All of us. The
So,
mayor, everyone on this council.
So when y'all started this,
but we did meet.
I would assume that y'all said, hey, we got this. Why don't we reach out? Why don't y'all reach out to the local experts that live here? We had to come to y'all. All I'm asking is not to approve any of this. Y'all were creating cookie cutter subdivisions. Cookie cutter. The PUD. Let me ask you this just real quick. So the PUD.
A few more minutes.
Well, I mean, you took 30 seconds of my time.
I did not.
Minimum 3 acres. The density 3 units per acre. Fine, I don't care about the density. But here it is. You do not allow multifamily, mixed use, or townhomes in the new PUD regulations. Why? Why not? Just think about that. I'm not so sure y'all completely understand some of these rules and regulations. Y'all did get rid of the commercial part of that PUD, which was great. But why can't you have townhomes, mixed use, or multifamily in a PUD? Doesn't make any sense. It's absurd. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Sir.
Thank you all again. On the number, the 3630, I think it's not a right number to start off with. I also think it's not the right way to measure things. So we have 212 properties in the CBD total. 150 of them, or 50 of them would fall into the 0 category that we rounded up to 1. 50 falls into the 1 category. And 45 falls into the 2 category. So almost 150 of the properties, we're basing it off of a area per acreage when there's no acreage. It's these mini lots. We're thinking about it the wrong way here. The CBD is meant to be dense. The idea of how many units you can fit on your property is not the same way as the number of units you're fitting on a subdivision and trying to divide as a subdivision. And that's really the methodology. So I understand when we have 7 properties that are large scale left in the CBD that are developable. Grayers, there's, as an example, is a large parcel, but there's not a lot of those things left, and maybe those are the ones that we need to concentrate on, the units per acre kind of methodology. But when you have a unit like Brian's, or a piece of property like Brian's that he was talking about before, is it wrong for there to be 5 or 6 units on that parcel when across the street you have an office building that can hold 100 people in it? I mean, the idea of what a downtown central business district is creating a density based off of the size and area of the parcels. The limitation on parking outweighs in some ways a lot of these lots than the 3630. I mean, there's a bunch of these lots that can't get any units no matter what we do because they're landlocked. There's no access to the back. They're 20 feet wide. You're going to drive through there and get a parking spot on there. You can't really, and there's a lot of those kind of issues already that exist. So I just want you to think about it maybe in a different way. It's not necessarily what's right for the central business district. And like Trey was saying before, it doesn't fall the same way in central business district as it does when we're looking at outside of CBD. I understand when we're looking at something else, mixed use in a large scale, 20 acre land and how many units we can get over there. But when we're looking at the CBD, and the 150 of the properties out of the 212 are tiny, and it just kind of doesn't even make sense the way we're looking at it. So I want you to think about that. The other thing, I'm sorry, I have 8 seconds left. I looked at the current, there's 75 units downtown on 25 properties. It's an average of 1 unit per 2,300 square feet. That's what's existing in the CBD right now for mixed use, okay? So we're going to make it less dense than what's there, and there's only, we want more. There's only 75 units total in all the CBD, and we talk about wanting more density as far as we want more mixed use. Excuse me. This is why we're talking about limitations of what's potential, and it's not going to be tomorrow. Everything gets redone. I mean, there's very few properties. 25. It's not like everybody's churning them out. It takes years for these things to happen. So just a thought.
Before you run off, not to argue with you, but more to, I guess, find some point of clarity. I feel like I've heard a few references to, hey, the parking is more restrictive. We couldn't do this anyway. So I guess I'm just trying to understand, is almost like, I feel like what I'm hearing is, well, we couldn't even develop this many units because the parking situation would be restrictive and not allow for it. So are we worrying about something that's not an issue because the parking would be? I'm asking from your perspective. Why then are you worried about the calculation of the size if the parking is even more restrictive than that, and that's a non-factor? Or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm misunderstanding
my question or my
No, your question is a great question. Some lots, it's not as easy as a calculator.
Okay,
I guess
that's
what
Mac
I'm
is saying.
Yeah,
just,
it's
you
not
can't
just
divide
as easy.
it by X
Right.
and
There is on some lots. You can say, okay, I have a bigger lot. Now I could fit. It's really wide. There's backs up to the alley. I can fit 12 cars. I'm making up the Greer's parcel, but I'm limited by the unit per acre basis. Okay. There's other lots that it may be big enough where I could fit 2 units on there, but I'm limited by the parking. Or I could get 1 or 2, but there's no way to get to the parking without coming from the front or something like that. So it's a mixture of both. And right now, the current way it's done is you got to look at how you can fit parking spaces on there, and that's your limitation. So how many parking spaces? Now you might say that's a good thing or a bad thing. Once you get to these bigger size properties, you can get more parking spaces, and that's where it gets confusing. But 150 of the lots, I'm telling you, parking is going to be a driving factor to begin with, and then you're going to go, how much can I really fit on here? What's good? What's viable? It just becomes like on Brian's, he's like, I could get 6, I could park 6 in the back, but now I'm going to be down to 3 based off of the current ordinance. And what's the goal there? What's the betterment of the city? When you look at it from a small lot standard, is 2,000 square foot units a bad thing? I can get 3 10,000 square foot units. Does anybody go live in a 10,000 square foot unit downtown? You know, just kind of those kind of basis.
I guess it feels like the discussion is being centered really around just a handful of property, because what you're saying is there's a bunch that are going to be eliminated. Even if you grant them the ability, they're going to be limited because we can't get the parking to them. And then you've got the others where we're going to say, all right, well, if we apply this 3630, maybe they get a few less units than what they could actually fit parking on. But in the grand scheme of things, it sounds like a very finite amount of properties that are actually going to be impacted by this.
Every single property is impacted by this.
They're impacted by it, but you're saying that they couldn't do anything anyways.
That's where I'm getting lost. The ones that are 0 that you're raising to 1, there's a lot of those properties
that are not going to be able to do anything, even if we allow it.
Okay. Then there's the properties that are at 1. Some of those, like Brian Britt did the one that's 2 stories there. He could fit 2 parking spaces. Now, that was a 0 property. Okay. Now we're making it 0 to 1. Well, one next door to him may not, or across the street, whatever, might be able to still get to 0 because there's no parking availability. But another one next door that could be 1, could have been 2. I mean, it's not like there's the idea of density is really what I want to challenge you with. You know, why are we trying to make the extreme squeeze on density in the CBD? And like I said, right now it's like 2,500 divided out across everything. So is it too dense right now? You're going to say there's too many residential units? There's more there's more residential units on lots that are like on Manic Court that are houses than there are mixed-use properties downtown. About twice as many units and lots that are just residential, not mixed use. And I know that's something they all are struggling with, but a lot of those lots can't be changed to commercial either. I mean, they're just the way they've already been designed and already been built. So I don't know. It's not an easy answer, I understand, for y'all, but I'm just telling you also, it's extreming the limitations on the lots, the mixed use. It's a real thing. It's not just, before it was just on parking, now it's parking, area, FAR, all those things that add up, and that 600 square foot unit, I think, was what you're talking about. I could do 2 businesses, because I'm a tiny lot, I can only get 1, I might as well do 2 floors of business, and the FAR, now I'm squeezed down on the FAR, so I can only get a little tiny penthouse unit on top, and it's 600 square feet, or it's 550 square feet, and I can't put it on there. But those are the kinds of things that, how it all relates together. It's a mad math equation that what we get to do to figure it all out at the end of the day. It already was complicated, but it's not as easy as just dividing it up on every single thing, because every lot is unique. And this makes character of Fairhope great, the unique character of all the lots and shapes and sizes. I took way more than 3 minutes. I'm so sorry.
I was going back and forth with you on that, so that's okay. I wanted you to do that. Thank you. Yeah, so, sure, one more minute. Come on up, Mac.
So hearing all this, just think for a minute. We haven't defined what problem we're trying to solve, and we haven't painted a picture of where we're trying to get to. The picture of where we're trying to get to, there's some magic density downtown that we can't understand what it should be. And so we're not clear that there's too much density with this type of occupancy downtown, but I guess there is, because we're really trying to crush it. And then we're not clear what the right number is. So you got 2 unknowns, and I don't know how you can pass something with that. So, I mean, you really, I mean, can y'all tell me what problem you're solving and what vision you're trying to get to with this ordinance? I don't know.
Just remember that the mixed use does affect everywhere in the city and not just downtown. We gotta keep that in mind. Mr. Cordy brought that out. That's a double-edged sword. Saying, what's the problem with density? It's supposed to be more dense downtown, but it also applies to anywhere.
60-acre property.
Any further conversation on mixed use?
I guess I did, Hunter, Can you say anything to the 2600, 2630? Is that what you mentioned, Ryan? Yeah, whatever, the 2630 versus the 3630 that we have? The 12 units versus the 16 and a half that maybe currently exist?
I can't really
Okay.
speak to Ryan's number on that. I'll talk to him after and see where he came up with those numbers. We talked last week and sat down. I think we stayed in the office till about 5:30 and was trying to look through GIS. You know, it got dark or it was getting late, so we left. I can't share kind of some of those initial studies as easily as, because they sit in our GIS. They're kind of tied to a lot.
Yeah, I understand.
We'll try to extract
fair.
those out and have something, but, you know, if it's just about what that number is, that at least what I was talking about, early on, we looked at what the mixed-use buildings that currently exist. Everybody said, hey, we like this. So if we're trying to replicate there was a density number to shoot for. It was, I think, way higher it was closer to what we started with. But I'll take a look and see if we can get an example of those.
Council, any additional questions, comments on mixed use, or are y'all prepared to move to the next item?
I just want to reiterate what Jack said, is that this does not apply only to the CBD, and I think Ryan and Max said the same thing. This is not just the CBD, it's the entire city.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close the floor for that public hearing, or for that item on public hearing.
I think Councilwoman Booth had a comment.
Oh, did I miss? Oh,
Oh, no,
Okay.
I'm learning and I'm listening.
Oh, I thought you had a comment, I'm
and,
sorry.
You know, trying to do the best I can to understand. I want the
Sure.
best for Fairhope, and I know Hunter does, I know Mac does, and
I think everybody in this room
everybody in this
does.
room. So,
Um,
I appreciate you guys working together tonight and keeping everything nice and cool. And yeah, I didn't see one
yeah.
red face tonight.
all right.
We're not done.
We're not even
only
halfway.
3 down.
We're a third, 33% of the way there. All right. Moving on, item number 8 is a public hearing. It's an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope's zoning ordinance related to multifamily/apartments. Would someone like to introduce this ordinance?
I'll introduce it.
Thank you, Councilman Robinson. Hunter, your floor.
Yes, sir. I'm going to go back to this change log. There's been no changes. There was nothing that was really discussed to change in this, so I'll go to that one, and maybe this will be an easy one, and we can pull up the link if needed. So if there's questions of the council, I can certainly answer those. Okay.
All right. Any questions for Hunter on multifamily and apartment?
No.
All right. We will open the floor for the public hearing if anyone would like to speak to this item. All right. Seeing no one, we will go ahead and close the floor. So it doesn't sound like there's a lot of questions or comments on that. Well, that made up for the 50 minutes on mixed use. Next item number 9, is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance related to PUDs, planned unit developments. Would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Thank you, Councilman Gammon. Hunter? floor is
So,
yours.
highlight the change there. We removed the required commercial component and added mixed unit, or added a maximum density per acre based on the conversations we had at council work sessions. That was, I don't want to sugarcoat the months before that, but that was the last substantial
Do you mind
change.
jumping back to that?
Sure.
I've tried to take that picture 3 times tonight.
There you go.
Every time it's been,
Yeah,
it's
and
been
this is
moved
intended to
before I
be a
can
quick
get it.
summary of the,
Yep, but I can reference.
This would be a great printout for the
Thank
next
you.
meeting.
All right. Thank you, sir.
please. That'd be lovely.
I got it. Much appreciated.
Okay, I think we went back and forth a little bit on the acreage. We retained the 3 acres. We removed the previous proposal requiring a commercial component within the PUDs. We added the 3 dwelling units per acre maximum, and we retained the previously proposed list of allowable underlying zoning districts. I mean, I don't think we have it. We kind of debated what that commercial component was. I know council kind of debated on what that upper maximum dwelling unit was going to be. That one's probably of the ones that I'm concerned with. This is probably the one, because I actually, regardless of what people say, I agree with Trey a little bit on this.
Yeah, I wondered, like, I can
PUD
see
is
townhouses being a decent use within that. I mean, to me, I could see mixed use being, PUD having multi-phases and components to it.
And I do think PUDs, have been overused. I believe when you look at the percentage of what our zoning is within the city of Fairhope, there is a lot of acreage of PUDs. And it's been accused of us, we don't want it because it's more work on us. That's not our concern. It's down the road. We're looking at some 20-year-old PUDs, and when somebody comes in and asks what they can do in their yard, we'd like to be able to tell them pretty quickly, instead of looking at 2 boxes of files of how that PUD's been amended through the years and what exactly applies to them. But with that said, I still think it's a good tool that should be used sparingly. That's from planning director to you, so putting the upper cap on it, is, I do have some concerns with that, but I don't know that we can't move forward, and then we've discussed other tools to get to that same goal.
You can't rewrite it?
I think it sends a clear signal to the citizens we're listening to.
Yeah, sorry, Councilman. Are you finished? Yes. The one thing I want to remind everybody is 15,000. There are 15,000 potential residents already approved on the books. So this is a clear signal that we understand that there are 15,000 more on the books, and we're going to limit as much as possible any future ones. That's what I view this as. I mean, for a lot of these, I'm trying to take notes here about some potential amendments for some other ones, but I would hate for us to pause everything trying to look for perfection, which in the 11 months that we've been looking at this, or I haven't been on this 11 months, but Lord, it feels like it's when we're talking about the zoning things, and it's important, I get that, but I've yet to see all of us, even though the 5 of us up here, agree entirely on any single one of these. And so I'd hate for us to say, let's just throw it all back off, do another moratorium, and try it again. I think what makes more sense to me is address the concerns that the citizens are telling us, which is they want less density, they want to slow down the growth, and tweak it. Because I would agree with you. I don't, if the density's at or under 3 per acre, I don't care if it's necessarily a townhome or a single family, or that's completely, that's up to design, right? That makes it, that to his point, we don't necessarily want cookie cutter either, but I don't think that should necessarily pause everything because we notice there's a couple parts of this that should be addressed. We can always do that, introduce another ordinance once everything has a good thing to.
Section.
Absolutely.
That's true. That's a good point.
I just want to make sure that Hunter's comfortable because he's important that he feels comfortable.
Listen, when the mechanism we come in and do that.
Hunter, do you feel safe right now? Do you feel safe?
I do. Thank you, Andrew. Because I know Jack is going, I don't care. Yeah, and he's right. At the end of the day, this is going to affect a lot of people.
He can run for office and get comfortable.
He was saying he wasn't comfortable, and I don't want
No.
to.
And let me rephrase.
He actually was saying he agrees with Trey that
on a tool, having that in the toolbox. Yeah. Now I do again, but it's flip the same side. There's been a lot of PUDs that are abused that does not meet the goal of a PUD. Right. That is 100% my opinion. Just to have a 5 foot smaller lot, that's no reason to have a PUD. But I do agree, and want to get away from this idea that every zoning ordinance has to be completely perfect. Every zoning ordinance is out there. There's a table in the back that shows an iterative process of amending that. And I think this is kind of the first time I've seen, we got to have everything. We can't come back and amend something. And I do understand the B3B, B3A, B3B, completely. There was some people there that didn't have trust. We would fix that. I think we removed that. But
Good.
I think it is entirely reasonable to adopt and amend and tweak as we move forward.
Okay. Affordable living as much as they will be afforded.
Not at 3 units.
Not in this city.
I like that word.
All right.
There was the language if we needed it. We did kind of pull this one on the revised.
True.
If we needed to reference that, the rest of the ordinance, I think, remained untouched of the PD, which is about 3 pages in and of itself of that section. But this was the only changes.
But I will say that our daughter lives in a condo with her 4 children, plenty of room, and they can afford it. So that's all I was saying.
I do believe we have some affordable housing, but right now when people are talking about affordable townhomes or, I mean, that's not the ultimate goal of this. We're not talking about, we want a mix of housing, but it's not, everything's not gonna be affordable.
And I know that it's been
I know
used
that.
before, and the prices are going to be what the market will bear. You know, so.
Any questions for Hunter on PUDs or any comments before we open the floor? All right, let's open the floor on PUD conversation.
I got something different to say. I want to say thank y'all for looking at these. And I know that this is something that y'all have been trying to do, just what Josh said, is to look at how to manage growth responsibly. And I think that PUD is a great tool that can be used well for a developer in the right way. And yes, the other housing options and all those things. But I think this and the multifamily are the 2 things that y'all really said that you want to reduce growth. And, you know, my only comments are thank you. So have a great
Yeah,
day.
thank you, Ron.
All right. Yes, sir.
Max coming up to counter that.
No, I want to talk kind of conceptually. The PUD, as we all know, is this one creative tool to get something that's outside the box. And I'm going to comment about the village section next, because I watched last year when y'all looked, or the Planning Commission looked at that really fascinating development catty corner to Walmart. And it got shot down because the buildings were too high, or the dreaded density, but it was a transformational development that a pretty accomplished developer was trying to do, and it got shot down for a lot of reasons. I won't go there, but I want to make sure because that was, if y'all remember, the villages in the past were a way to take pressure off of downtown, that only downtown Fairhope can be Fairhope. Well, we said, let's create another town node that takes pressure off, and it'll be a happening place to be. And we just stomped that thing. I really was sad about that. So I hope y'all can want to do those in the future, but I'm not sure that's there, because as I sit here, as I'm hearing from the folks that own that property, it'll probably blink your eye, and 5 years from now it'll look just like the intersection of 104 and 181, which is okay, but we get to talk about trees and signage and all that, but is that really is that place making? That's just a different form of land use. So I hope y'all can reestablish your ability to think creatively, and when somebody comes and wants to do something really out there, not send them scurrying. So that's a different subject. So.
All right. All right, council, anything else on this PUD issue? All right, we're gonna move on to item number 10, public hearing ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance site plan review, Would someone like to introduce this ordinance?
I can introduce it.
Thank you, Councilman Gammon. Hunter, your floor.
Thank you. I think if I saw that email right, Mac and Ryan are no problems with this one, so unless there's somebody else behind me, this might be an easy one.
Please.
The site plan review, and I'll go back to the table here. Site plan review, change the site plan review, there's been no changes. I think we've had some conversations to highlight, answers a lot of questions, but there's been no changes to that throughout the revisions. We talked about those in work session and still no changes. This would require certain uses to have to come through Planning Commission, City Council for review and approval of their site plan. Those uses are gas stations and hotels, things like that. I think there's a full list if you want to pull
Can we
that
see
out.
that, a little bit
Yeah,
of that?
probably
Sure.
be good.
So mixed-use buildings, convalescent or nursing homes, automobile service stations, automobile repair, recreational vehicle park, hotel, motel, or entertainment venue, or the uses.
I mean, it's kind of hard to say what was added and what was taken away, looking at that. Do you have a red line to that?
We haven't changed that at all. So what,
Oh, okay.
what the site plan review required before was if a building was over 10,000 square feet, the lot outside the building impervious surface was greater than 33%. If the height was over the district, mixed-use buildings were allowed 5 feet over at one time. If, let's say, the district required 30 feet, and they could go to 35 feet, but they had to come get a site plan review. And one more, was that it? So in addition to the gross floor of 10,000 square feet and the impervious surface, it was 30%, sorry, not 33%. There was, and has been consistently, some uses that have been concerning. You know, I don't think we've had a gas station or automobile service station approved in the city limits within the last 20 years, and all of a sudden we've got quite a few of them. Another one last month at Planning Commission, another one coming this month. So some of those use-specific things need to come through a site plan review, was the conversation. But we haven't added or removed from that list since we began these conversations back in August.
Any additional questions for Hunter on the site plan review? All right, let's go ahead and open the floor for the public hearing. Floor is open. All right. We'll go ahead and close the floor.
Goodness,
Move
this
on
is a beautiful night. We
from
got
that,
laughter from our people.
Item number 11 is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance, Table 3-1, 3-2, and 3-3. Would someone like to introduce the ordinance? Thank you, Councilman Burrell. Hunter?
So, separating out the tables, while there's a lot of information packed in in those tables, probably the most substantial one since our last revision was adding back in, just removing the proposed edit and leaving it alone, leaving single family and two family alone within B3A, B3B, and for single family alone in B4. That was the only change. I want to scroll up just to make sure I'm correct in our table. Use tables. So, and those changes were made a while back. We haven't made any new edits at this time. Y'all have any questions about those? There was no direct request to make changes to those.
That was number 11.
Questions for Hunter on?
Is this where the impervious area standards are?
No, this is,
Next one?
all right. No questions right now? We'll
I
go
think
ahead
This
and,
one makes sense, I think.
There will be in the table, but effectively where we put those is in a separate.
in the
Okay,
next.
that's why I'm getting confused. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and open the floor, and it may generate some more conversation. So, floor is open for public hearing on tables.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. I thought the impervious area was on that table, so.
Sorry. I'm thinking about strawberry cakes too. The sit down, do we have the printed? Okay, I'm gonna pull up the whole,
The second table, 3-2.
the
has
second
it.
table. 3-2 does
Not the
have.
first,
We
not the
were on
first table
3-1,
where you started.
Make it far enough.
And it's note they told me wrong.
Yeah, but it's a 3-3.
No, thank you.
Yeah, there it
Peyton
is,
just
yeah.
reminded me as I sat down to remove that, I was completely wrong. So we'll
Yes,
pull
Councilman Gammon.
the, nope. So this does have,
Right at 2. Number 2,
3-2.
3. If you go up a little bit more.
Okay. This is probably a little easier to see. So we're getting there.
Everybody catch all
Let's
that?
get
There we
there.
go, there it is.
We'll
Yes,
get you
that's
there.
easier to see.
So those, I think, were the conversations on the impervious surface. So yes, that would be within this table, so.
Yes, I have some questions about that. So, I think in general, I'm in favor of the impervious areas, and this sounded good to me until my property was analyzed, and I could see it from a different perspective, and I kind of went, okay, my current property, which I believe is zoned R2, I don't have a pool, I just have a driveway and a sidewalk. A very small patio. I'm over the max impervious by like 2 or 3%. So when I thought of it more like that, when I saw a real world application of it, I'm like, okay, this doesn't really seem particularly reasonable. It seems like it's a little bit too restrictive. I'm not against having a max impervious area to make sure there's not just, somebody paving over their whole lot, but if you, swing by my house, I have a fairly large front yard. I have a decent sized back area. And for it to be shown as like, I wouldn't be able to put anything else on my lot. Not that I want to, that's not why I'm saying it, but I could visualize, be like, this just seems a little bit more restrictive than would make sense.
And I'm sorry, I know we didn't do that analysis for you. Be happy to do that if you want
Yeah.
a second opinion. But is that your lot coverage from your structures being covering, or you couldn't put a concrete driveway, but you could put a brick paver driveway? I don't know exactly in your scenario.
Yeah, I think
we're
what
looking at.
I've heard comments on this a lot is, can I put a pool, right? And so, my reading of it would be no, right? There is no pool allowed there. I'm not interested in it. So again, it's not because it's impacting me. It's because I could then see it and go, okay, should we have different? And we've kind of gone around and around on this, right, Hunter? Is that should we have different reasons based upon area and lot creation? Because if my lot was created in the 90s, and so should every future homeowner who had no say on what that lot looked like now be penalized and saying that they can't have anything when my drainage again is completely separate from other parts of the city? And so that's just where I'm at. I don't know the perfect answer. Maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 47, where that makes more sense. Maybe for existing lots versus new lots, we should think about it. I don't know. But when I looked at that, I just said, that seems, I would have thought with my lot that I would have had plenty of space to put something, right? An extended patio or anything. And it would say no, according to. Yeah.
Love to take a look.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there are, some of the older developments, especially when it's kind of the same home builder, a lot of times they did fill out on the front end, like here's every square inch of building you can squeeze on this lot.
Yeah.
And You know, there's a lot, most of those are sitting in R3 and R3 PGH that we deal with a lot for the building.
Yeah, maybe I hit the lottery, so to speak, where I'm just that particular type. I don't know. But be curious.
And so I received similar analysis, so for my lot, I would honestly agree that it probably doesn't need any more impervious. My lot's probably maxed out as is, and this is one that I feel like we need to address this, because we're spending money every year on drainage, on stormwater related runoff issues, but I'm also not entirely sure. I feel like I might need more education to make sure we get this one right, or it could always, you know, we could take the approach of, hey, we can approach it and then modify later, but I understand why that gives people some heartburn, but in my case, I would say, yeah, that lot doesn't need any more impervious surface, but I mean, I think I know Councilman Gammon's neighborhood, so I can kind of imagine if he's maxed out, then, well, I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that. So it just kind of, it does vary from area to area, but I think the problem that we keep dealing with on this is with the stormwater runoff, it clearly has to do with impervious surface, because you have houses that have been around for a long time that have never had water issues, that now they've had homes with larger homes, larger driveways, impervious built near them, and now they're getting water on their property where they never have in the past. So I know it's an issue, but you know, whether we're missing the percentages or where we go from here, I don't know. So,
I think,
Council,
we
any
need to talk about that.
any other thoughts, feedback before we open the public floor?
Tough call, but sometimes, I mean, you gotta.
It's costing the city money every time.
Mine played out the same way, but I don't think that I should be allowed to put any accounts on there.
You got to have a limit. I'm 100% on the limit.
All right.
I'm waiting.
You want to open the floor and then we'll see where we go? Sure. All right, floor is open on, or do we have any more tables? Is that 3-2? Or is that 3-3?
I'll show you all of them while we're here.
Yeah.
So 3-1, and I'll kind of go slow for the folks that maybe watch.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
And this is all posted on the website. You know, if you want to see, anyone that wants to see us, they don't have to rely on YouTube screenshots. This is the table 3-1, which is the use table. And it's 2 1/4 pages, and then Peyton, you got to explain what you did here. There's 2 copies of it. Oh, yep. So just the red line, the strike throughs can kind of get confusing. So then table 3-1 final is reflective of what it would be if you pass this ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you. And then table 3-2 is the dimension table.
3-2 is,
And that's where the
That's
impervious
impervious.
surface that we just hit, that's got the density for R4, R1, R5. A lot of the notes and are there. You have the clean version. And was it just 3-1, 3-2?
3-3 is supposed to be.
Did we wind up in? Oh, that was just a column title. So, sorry, we didn't have that we did not include that. The column title, where can we pull that up? Just to show you what that was kind of a header that didn't have a diagonal on it. So it was a little confusing. Were you looking at the zoning district or the use? That was almost just a clarification while we were in there, nothing tangible. If you want to, I can dig that up. It might take me 3 minutes to try to find that one on the website.
I don't have any questions.
That one
Don't worry
wasn't.
about it. I think
Okay.
questions are going to be on the others. So let's go ahead and open the floor for public hearing.
Party off.
Yeah, sorry. Thank y'all. I want, like Hunter said, we met with the planning staff and building and engineering for 3 hours. It was a long time. We had a great discussion. My biggest concerns is just lack of definition and understanding, and what is impervious, what's not. It's kind of hard to design to unclear standard, and understanding that 47 or 42 or whatever percentage basis, it's kind of like hard to know if that's the right number if you don't know what the materials and how you're going to meet the definitions. So I agree. I am in favor of putting some sort of limitation or some sort of standards. And can we meet the standards even if I have a 60%, but I have an engineer that designs it to maintain no water goes off my site, and that's 100% contained, and before it used to run off my site. I mean, might be an even different way to do it and go beyond a percentage of a number, but I think there needs to be some sort of standards. I agree we need to control drainage in our city, but just understand the standards has been the hard part for me. And I think we talked a lot about this process of, Councilman Gammon, if you wanted to do something, do you tear out something? Do you put in a LID practice on your law, and you're able to do that still? I'm sure, I know we've talked a lot about this, but the methodology is what the rubber meets the road, and I know they talked about writing additional standards or commentary, or I don't know what the right terminology is, to make it all happen. So I'm not anti this ordinance, I just to let you know those are my concerns.
I think you may have just suggested something that I have been thinking about here lately was maybe the approach is you've got a percentage that sort of you're automatically qualified for, and then beyond that, there has to be an engineered solution that says, hey, we understand we're above the standard threshold, but we've invested the money in design, and here is a solution that's gonna avoid or resolve the issues because to me that's what it's about is what we're trying to prevent. And I know Mac, you've asked a couple times, like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Well, in this case, the problem is that every single year the water runoff is increasing, the utility related projects related to stormwater and failing pipes, et cetera. We're spending a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more resources trying to address that. So maybe the solution is not just cut it off at this percentage, but if you're going to go beyond this percentage, we're going to need you to put some more skin in the game, some more money, and bring us a solution that proves that you've addressed this properly. And maybe that's a way to go about that.
Credits almost.
And it's just like Councilor Gammon's property, there's going to be a lot of people that are just unaware that they fit into I'm over the limit now, and then they go to sell their house and somebody else now takes on that over the limit without that knowledge either, and then it's not you that wanted to add the pool, but the person wants to buy your house or something like that, and having the ability to do it in some form or fashion like you're talking about, at least as a
if somebody's
productive,
willing to spend the money and
as a productive way to resolve a
then
problem,
there's a solution if they're willing to spend the money and the resources to get there.
But there's going to be a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot more people that
get in this,
get into that kind of piece where, at the current percentages, and maybe I'm not in favor of a pass it and fix it later, but maybe you pass it and fix it later, you figure out that there is a better percentage, and that's the way you want to go about it, whatever it is. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the fact that you're not so upset with the ordinance or the numbers, but just the definition of what it is.
Yeah. Right. So, and yes, that was part of the conversation. The zoning ordinance is typically, I know it's pouring language, is legalese, as some people say, but it's not the technical guidance. It's not the engineer's document to go look at. We do have some regulations in place. Zoning ordinance has a coefficient table that you can look at for some of those materials. And that's, Eric and Richard and I have talked about some of this, and are going to try to meet.
I feel like
You could probably put those technical.
Well, there's a
methodologies
definition in the
form.
footnote, but I think y'all are missing each other on what exactly. Can you pull that up in the footnote on impervious surface?
Yes. Thanks, Chris. Let's go here and see if we can zoom in. How do
Impervious
it's right here. I just can't.
Impervious
zoom in.
area means the developed area of the lot, including house and accessory structures, as well as surfaces that do not allow the free passage of water through the material into the ground. The term impervious area shall include without limitation
There we go.
sidewalks, driveways, parking areas, decks, and patios, unless such surfaces are constructed of materials that allow passage of water into the ground at a rate equal to the pre-developed condition.
So
if you-
when they say it doesn't define it, they want to say
What material?
gravel
Yeah.
is impervious.
Gravel up to this
gravel,
size.
bark, whatever, whatever things
Well, and
specifically lay it out.
So this was the challenge, because I think one of the things, and I know it was an example of in Mobile, if you're in Spring Hill, it costs a fortune to try to get a permit, because you got to do a full engineering study to figure out what that is. So by putting it in the zoning ordinance and using the model some of the folks do, there's kind of a margin of error there. If we see we're close to that maximum, we can push it to another step that does cost, but probably 90%, I'm making that number up, 90% would just move on, permits would just move on forward without that additional cost. It's a legitimate question when it comes down to it, and if you're close, what is that? And typically there's a coefficient of materials. So even a grass lawn doesn't completely shed water. There's a minor, it's running off, limestone driveway becomes concrete, compacted gravel after years without maintenance. So if we're really getting into that component, you got to think a little bigger about, which the subregs do, and now it's over stormwater. And I'll use that, we don't want to go that hard for a subdivision regulation for someone building a grandma bump, I think that was a shed or an addition to their house. But that same concept applies. If you're going to install something, then it also has a requirement to be maintained. Because if you go in and put a fully engineered plan that resolves it, but if you're not maintaining and underground storage, LID or something like that, if you don't maintain it or you fill it in as soon as you build it, which I've seen happen, then it's not over its overall. But I think we've talked about this, and we're planning to meet this week. You can put those requirements in another section of the code. The percentage sits here, but when it hits that threshold, that can sit in the city code or building code. I don't want to, there's multiple places that can sit that's not inside the zoning ordinance. They can give
It
those
just says
guidance.
you've exceeded this percentage, now you need to go refer to this. Okay.
Yeah, and there is a table, that same table that's in the subject, that gives you the coefficients, and that was some of the conversations here that they can now, what that does is probably require an engineer for every house.
So Hunter, if somebody built a gravel driveway,
Mhm.
and the engineer said, well, your coefficient is this low. 5 years later, they've been driving over that thing forever. Now all that gravel's just completely compacted, and it's like concrete. That changes the coefficient? Would you go back to them and say, now you're non-conforming? You gotta tear it up and...
I don't think it's feasible to think we can always be monitoring everybody's yard, but where it could come in, if there was if we received a complaint from the neighbor and there is a known complaint, then we would have that on record to say, hey, you're supposed to be maintaining it at this level. Yeah. Well, I think at that point,
You would hinder them from doing something else impervious.
so if we're really going to get into
Yes.
the coefficient side of things, think
With quality of that being impervious, and then it became impervious.
I don't think you would retroactively make them fix it. It would just be that you wouldn't allow them to get the next permit to do the next thing.
Well, and think about the history of our subdivisions. We, for a while, didn't have stormwater requirements. Then there was an evolution. We required that put in a covenant so that we created a stormwater agreement. Well, we've kind of learned through the process there that it's not actually putting it in, but it's a process that they have to agree to maintain it. We're not out there making sure every day they're maintaining it.
You drive around, look up by driveway, see if the gravel's compacted, but you better have a remedy if you're gonna have that rule.
And that's typically what our agreement says, you have to maintain it, or it's not if it's a problem.
Same token as, well, you're not supposed to have rental well, I changed that. I'm not renting it. We're not going around checking it. You gotta have a remedy, make it stop.
Right, yes. When we find it, this is what happens, and that's what I was it would help if we had an idea of what that's supposed to be, because as Eric will tell you, and a lot of times we have those plans in a building permit, those are only good for 7 years. They go out the door, so whatever that solution is. So if we're gonna do something like this, you won't.
Think about the rules and regulations and remedies.
Having that agreement, and that's what a lot of folks do, will say, they kind of make it a deed restriction. If you're gonna get these I'm gonna call it alternative solutions to handle drainage, then that has to be in a deed restriction that'll be maintained.
I got some cracks in my driveway.
You've gone the opposite way. Yeah, that's not unusual. It's in more problem areas, is that fair?
It is, yeah. One of the things, in talking, Councilmember Earl, one of the things, if someone is required to put in an LID or a pervious material, that was listed in a permit. If someone fails to maintain it, and we get a complaint for the neighbor, and they then refuse to correct or maintain it, I would think that becomes a civil issue between those two neighbors. That's one of the things in this that we deal with, because I had a lady very clearly tell me, we have an engineered drainage plan on an adjacent property. And she said, I don't care what the engineering says, you need to take care of the existing citizens and not just let new people do whatever they want to do. And I said, well, the best that we can do is to have them engineer it. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not going to supposed to overrule or tell an engineer how they're supposed to do their job. We tell them and we let them design something to handle the situation. But there's only so much that we are going to be able to do when it comes to the issues, and that's where I normally swim, is in the water between arguing neighbors. That's where I'm at. And Hunter's there as well, Richard's there, and she's there as well, yeah. So that's where we are, is dealing with neighbors that are having drainage issues and trying to get the person who wants to build the house, put in the driveway, double driveway, put in the pool deck, put in the accessory building, put in the outdoor living, where it is just, and we've got many instances, especially in the fruit and nut, but in other parts of town too, where it is wall-to-wall paving. And we've made people put LIDs in. I've got half a dozen right now that I've got engineered plans. I'm holding up COs until that engineer does a final inspection for me. If that later develops into a problem with the neighbors, I'm going to have to turn it over to them. We have done everything we can within our authority to try to address the situation.
But they will say we have not.
That's correct.
Because we issued the building permit knowing that, and we issued the building permit and there could be that we're on the property.
That's correct.
Yeah, this was the situation day one when I got sworn in the next day. You remember?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I tell folks my top 3 complaints are drainage, 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 all 3. So,
I get that call probably once a week.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
I built adjacent, I'm getting water on my property.
Oh, yeah.
You gave them a building permit.
Now, the other thing I will tell you, in all fairness too, people have a right to develop their property. They don't have a right to put all of their problems on their neighbors, but it's also not that person's job to fix the drainage ills of an entire subdivision or a street that was occurring before. So, as long as they are taking reasonable measures and they are trying to address their issue with engineering, I tell folks all the time, there's a difference between drainage and flooding. I get the call, I'm flooding. To me, flooding is in your house. The regulations we have, I don't want water in your house. Water in your yard, to some extent, is just a cost of living in Fairhope, Alabama, where we get 70 inches of rain a year. But we can also address that. One of the things that make that problem worse is the wall-to-wall paving, the wall-to-wall solid surfaces on a property. So that's why I'm absolutely in agreement. We need to do something with the impervious surface. If that means leaving in the opportunity to have an engineer address it, then yeah, we do that now. I mean, I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, because it's just costing us money, that our city is costing us.
Well,
money.
it is, and I mean, it's costing goodwill between neighbors. I mean, I've got some
Oh, yeah.
really tense situations in town that I'm trying to mediate, and I'm trying to help people come together on it. But,
We don't want that.
it's the best we can do. But we need to do something because it's just getting worse.
All right, thank you, sir. Floor is still open. Yes, sir.
The hour and a half we spent together about this, talking about define our problems. Well, there's three problems interwoven with this issue. The first is the neighbor-to-neighbor drainage, which is, I get completely, and that's really a design problem, how the house was designed, about how they did the drainage, where they put their downspouts. This ordinance doesn't necessarily help that, but I know that's part of it. The second is the LID components in our comp plan. LID wants you to absorb the water on site, to do everything you can to minimize runoff. And the third is an indirect one, the McMansion concern that houses are too big in Fairhope. So I think a reasonable thing, and Richard Johnson touched on a couple of these, is we need to go ahead and define these coefficients, because why let 8 different engineers have 8 different opinions about the permeability of a certain gravel? Go ahead and say, and I was joking about a pool earlier, go ahead and decide that a pool is impermeable, whatever. But delay this one for 90 days while the staff puts together that little chart that's part of the ordinance. Then when it comes out, there's no questions about it. We all know what to design to. What we're worried about is if you pass this in a couple of weeks and we submit something the next day, there's not really a good tool for them to talk about it. Because we joked about wood decks. A wood deck with a gap between it is permeable. A synthetic wood deck with a spline in it is impermeable. They're both going to show up maybe as a wood deck, and that's a big difference. So we would say give yourself time to get these standards written, and then do that. Now realize that this delta of the 42% or 43%, depending on thing, it's not a huge amount of water per lot, so it's not really going to fix things, but it's going to get us on the right path to thinking about that. And the other idea that came out is pass it, and the moment we pass it, that's almost a grandfather line. I know we hate the word grandfather, grandma, whatever. So like Mr. Gammon's lot, we document what's there the day it's passed. They've got excellent data. Anything he does after that, if he's over the ordinance or right at it, has to be net zero. He has to not increase the runoff, but don't create a situation where you penalize someone that's this thing where I'm going to have to tear out my concrete and put gravel in there to achieve a really minor impact. So I think the two things is say, okay, here's the baseline. If you do anything after that that's impermeable, it has to be net zero. And then going forward, everything, so you're achieving the same result, I think. So I hope y'all can do something like that or consider that.
We're not considering anything retrofitting. That you weren't talking about that, though.
Say that again?
You weren't talking about retrofitting when you're saying.
Well, I'm saying if you said here's
if they were wanting to do something extra and it
here's
didn't.
These lots, and there's plenty of older lots, and this is a small lot problem mostly. The big lots aren't. Here's plenty of them we've looked at that are, as they sit today, they're non-conforming. So you say, okay, you're existing non-conforming. If you want to go add that, we used a outdoor kitchen as an example. Go add that outdoor kitchen in the backyard or the pool, but you have to have an engineered solution so there's not a net increase in runoff. We're not saying, okay, if you want to add that outdoor kitchen, go tear out 200 square feet of pavement or something. So I think that's a reasonable, because it achieves the same goal of not increasing the runoff. So,
thank you, sir. Council, any, or is the floor still open? Yes, sir. Everybody but me
Okay.
and
I
Jack.
just want to clarify, that last part of that definition is where it gets really confusing for designers. Passage of water into the ground at a rate equal to the pre-development condition. Many of our fruit and nut lots, I sent a little study to Richard Johnson just to kind of identify, here's a standard layout, house, driveway goes past it, car parked in the back. If you did it all out of a impervious material, you would be able to meet the percentage. It's very hard to meet the percentage without making everything very small. But what is the material that's changed it out to? So, okay, now I know I can't meet it. I need to use a pervious material that allows passage into the water into the ground equal to the pre-development rate. There's really nothing that does that. There's no material. Gravel will not do it. A pervious paver, pervious concrete, nothing is going to be the same as the grass that was there on a undeveloped lot. So that's why the definition piece for designers in understanding how this. So I just wanted to go back to that because they mentioned the definitions and kind of went a little bit to the side a little bit on all that, and just wanted to clarify those terminology. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Council, any comments, questions for Hunter? Anything, Hunter?
No, I got
Follow up? All right, maybe some more to consider
yeah,
there.
more to consider on that one for sure.
Next item is item number 12. It's a public hearing. It's an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance relative to townhouses.
Sorry, I'll get there. This is the only Mac I've ever used, so. Other than the iPad, and so we'll get there. Okay, the townhomes, and I'm gonna go back to our chart here. Townhomes were proposed, or we haven't had much feedback to change. There has been no changes to any amendments, and there is none in this one. We can pull that up if needed, but if not, I'm going to leave this slide if there's questions.
No questions? I can remember this one.
Yeah, could I just take a quick look at it? Just
So would you prefer to see the ordinance or the red line?
red line,
Okay.
please. There you go.
So there is currently a townhome section. This is dealing with, and really probably one of the biggest, one of the significant changes to this one. There's a product that historically, and there's one behind Publix. I don't want to say there's anything wrong with any project we've approved. We got criticized for that last time. But it brought up a lot of questions. Those are apartments, essentially. They're rentals, not individually owned lots. Well, some of this section was written, all right, the lot size that's created is a certain size, how much yard they have to have, some specifics. So some of that was clarifying those intents. Those would be reviewed in the future if this is approved as multifamily. Sure.
I would like to introduce the ordinance.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilman Burrell, we did walk right by that.
Thank you. Jump right in. But, the net density, some of those, items that were changed, and I'll go back to the red lines since that's easier to see. Deals with the setbacks, cut out some of the, there's this methodology for shared common areas. If it's within 600, nobody could ever understand that. We had a lot of people coming in, especially when they're more apartment style, looks like a townhome, but is not split up, is ownership for that. Let's see, net density, we created a net density component to more comply with our subdivision regulations. Net density looks at the size of a lot, but also what else is on that lot. If it's 90% flood zone or floodway, well, you don't get the gross density But that's it. That's the red lines right there.
All right, council, any questions or comments on this for Hunter before we open the floor? All right, let's go ahead and open the floor for the public hearing related to townhouses. Okay, seeing no comments, no public, we'll go ahead and close the floor. Any questions, any comments, any follow-up?
No.
All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is item number 13 is a public hearing, and it's an ordinance to amend ordinance number 1253 to consider the request from the City of Fairhope Planning and Zoning Department for amendments to the City of Fairhope zoning ordinance for village districts.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Really, I'm not even going to show the slides on this one. As discussed, the village districts, I think they do have a good concept. I think Mike said it best. Why just have regular development if you cannot, if you can replicate the CBD in other areas? That's a great tool. I think what we got, and again, there's no village district zoning district ever been approved. Instead, what we got was a lot of PUDs that wanted the density and those sort of things, but not the architectural styles, maybe design guidelines, and some of the things that went along with that, because I think that was the concept of the village district. We'll trade the density to ensure we're actually getting something that would create downtown, what this is currently in the CBD. We did recommend removing that. We did reserve that section. So as we've discussed, we would like to, with the sewer territory, with the kind of re-looking at density, we would like to reserve that section for when we potentially hire. Not sure what that proposal will be, if it's going to be palatable or not, but at least when we hire a team, that would be reserved if we needed to come back with some other concept. But at this time, we just removed the section in its entirety. If there's questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Questions?
Nobody's ever applied for?
I don't know if anyone's ever applied officially for that, at least in the time I've been here. It has, hey, what do you think we should do? And I've always been, well, apply for one of these districts. I think it'll be a shoe-in. People will beg for that, and by the time they sit down and look at it, they usually come in with a PUD instead.
Yeah.
And say, well, we like this component, but not this, or it's going to be too expensive, or we don't have the team together to put all these components, various reasons, which are, I won't say they're not legitimate, but just different reasonings.
All right. Council, any comments or questions for Hunter before we open the public hearing? All right, let's go ahead and open the public hearing on village districts. Seeing nobody, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. So one more chance to ask Hunter about it. Any questions? All right. Thank you. Next item is a public hearing on ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 1253. It's a public hearing to consider the request of the applicant Thompson Engineering on behalf of the owner Gulf Health Hospitals, Inc. to rezone property from R4 low density multifamily residential district to B2 general business district for Thomas Hospital. Properties are located at 751 and 757 Northrop Avenue and a total of 0.35 acres.
Okay.
Would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
I'll introduce it.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Council.
All right, you two.
All right, so not a zoning text amendment, but a zoning map amendment in front of us. This, and I'll kind of jump straight over to the slide here. I think this is exemplifies what we're looking at. Thomas Hospital here on the screen is zone B2. They own a lot to the south that has some of their equipment on it. They've purchased 2 additional lots that they would like to combine into their property. There is an approved site plan that says exactly what is done within those lots. And I'll kind of show, there's the 2 lots in question. I'm going to jump through real quick. And sorry, Peyton, you've put a very thorough slideshow together. If we need to go back to anything, we can. I think this shows what I was trying to. There is a fence and required landscape buffer around this to separate these properties as our buffer zone requirements require between residential properties, because there are still residential properties on Northrop. Those are our zone, or most of those are zoned R4, but they do have single-family homes on them right now. We do not allow split zoning, so one of the requirements of the site plan, and also something that Thomas Hospital would like to accomplish, is combining these two lots with the rest of their property. So we cannot have R4 on one piece of the lot and B2 on the other. This is kind of creating the zoning in place so that we can approve their administrative replat to combine those lots. We really didn't have a whole lot of concerns on this, but there were some calls from the surrounding property owners on Northrop Street who were concerned about this application altering the zoning district of their properties.
And they wanted to rezone.
One is, but others were concerned that this wasn't going to change their property, affect their property value, some going up, some going down. So as such, this will affect the zoning districts of these two properties, not changing any zoning for any other properties across the city or adjacent to or affecting that. This did go through your planning commission. They recommended unanimously with a 9-0, had good turnout that month, to recommend approval. So does the planning staff. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them at this time, or I can wait till after the public hearing.
Questions?
I have a little bit of a concern that he's on at B2. They got parking issue there. They keep expanding into the neighborhood and back down to Morphy. And if they combine that with their existing lots as B2, there's nothing to prevent them from turning that into a parking lot. Nothing to prevent them from buying the next two properties in between these two and saying they want to rezone this, and you got to put parking on the side. And it's just going into the residential areas, much like one of our churches.
Yep. So there's two questions in that. There is something preventing them from expanding. There is an approved site plan that limits what they do. One of these lots has currently housed, I think it's a generator or some other, and they're with an addition, they're adding another generator, which is why the fencing landscape is required to preserve those. I know Eric really looked at the noise attenuation requirements on the equipment itself. So they can't just wipe that out without getting a revision to the site plan. The roading of the adjacent properties, that's another issue. A lot of this uses would be allowed in the medical overlay anyway.
Yes.
So the B2 is not as, and residential properties allow parking as well. So you can they can buy the R4 and put 40 parking spaces on that today. Zoning ordinance allows that in the parking table. That's in the holster, ready to come back. No pun intended. Don't shoot.
We've got to do something about that. And the people, if they want to expand, they're going to have to increase their parking capacity.
I agree.
We cannot keep taking away on residential lots.
Certainly without the proper reviews and approvals. And we have kind of a draft of that requirement. So, but I do want you a little comfortable.
We did talk about noise attenuation. I talked about it. The camera would be in this last. How much of a nuisance is it going to be? And maybe not much more than there already is there.
Yeah.
I did want to think about those concerns, because you go up to Norfolk, say they do buy all those lots. What about those across the street from Norfolk?
Like the block.
Like, where does it end?
Absolutely.
Then you're gonna say, well, it's industrial across the street, let's just go across the street again.
Absolutely, and I know that during that site plan review and even internal staff, getting a more dense planning that's required to help with the noise, the fence, and Eric, there's the equipment within the generator for noise, I know they had to send that back off, and if you want to mention
They had
that.
to put it in an housing, and one of the things we asked for and they provided was it provides sound attenuation, and I'm not gonna lie to you, when that massive generator kicks on, it may not be quite as shrill, but it's gonna be loud. I mean, there's no way around it with a generator the size that they're putting in.
And I think they've nicknamed the one that's been there for a while, it's got a certain sound, so.
Yeah.
It may be just the hum is a little different.
Yeah.
Than the new one.
Backup generator,
It is. This is part of.
natural gas powered?
No, hospitals, I don't believe, are allowed to be natural gas. They have to have an independent fuel source. If it's first responder, I believe. I'll double check, but I think it's diesel.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. That's come up
It's a-
before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know that first responder centers, I think they do require, or my understanding is the Department of Health requires that they have to have an independent fuel source.
And I think that's right. One of these things that are on site is a fuel tank.
Yeah.
All right, any additional questions for Hunter on this, council? Let's go ahead and open the floor for the public hearing then. All right, seeing nobody, I will close
Come on,
the
Ryan.
floor. Close the floor on that public hearing, and we will move to item number 15, which is a public hearing resolution ascertaining, fixing, and determining the amount of the assessment to be charged as a lien on the property known as 7 Woods Avenue in the city of Fairhope, Alabama, as a result of the city ordering the demolition of the building on the property pursuant to the ordinance number 1447. Yeah, this is Eric. We
Went over this in the work session.
yeah, we covered it solidly in the work session.
The work session, and
Yeah.
Jennifer has been a trooper because she has been sitting here.
I've
The only
I'm,
thing she's here.
Come on up,
you
Jennifer.
should
Come on
have
up.
flagged me down. I thought you were just interested in all this.
Hey,
I was wondering what you were doing hanging out this late. I figured you just found this interesting. Yeah, my bad not asking you a long time ago what you were here for. Would someone like to introduce well, this is just a resolution, never mind. It's a resolution, but it's a public hearing. Eric covered it pretty well, so let's go ahead and open the floor and we can address it if there's any questions. All right, let's close the floor. Council, any questions, comments?
What was it being changed to? Or are you putting a lien on it? Just
Charge.
Yeah.
This is the one we're putting a lien on it.
This one's the one that already has been demolished? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
I'll make a motion to fix the
Second.
assessment to be charged on lien on the property.
And a motion and a second? Any further discussion?
You could have said anything. She'd already seconded.
All right, well, hearing none, all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thankfully, we have covered the rest of the agenda, so at this time, I will open the floor to public participation. You can address the council about anything on the agenda or not on the agenda. Floor is open. All right, let's close the floor, and before we adjourn, just a big apology to Alex that we kept Jay here till almost 9 o'clock on her birthday.
Happy
But
birthday, Alex.
as my friends point out every once in a while, you did actively campaign for this, so. All right. Would
Almost
someone
like
like to
he
make a
knew
motion
he
to
wouldn't be
adjourn?
there.
All right, all in favor? Aye.